All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Okay, share this out, share this out, share this out. All right, it's Friday night. The Law of One. Welcome, Denise. I see you in the audience. If you don't say hello in the audience or say something in one of the chats, I don't know you're here. I just see numbers. Okay. So share this out. Like I said, share this out, share this out. I only shared it to a couple of places. I shared it to my page, to Orion Coalition. Oh, let me pull down that banner. How we do that? And then put myself up in full screen so you're not looking at that thing that doesn't even show you the words, right? Okay. So let me go back to the chat over here. Okay, so it's Friday night, the Law of One. I shared it out to Returning to the Old Ways, the Orion Coalition in Light, and my page, and I think Lightworkers United, one of those places. That's it. So everybody else share that out. We are live on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And those places that I shared it to are all on Facebook. So we're on those platforms. I was going to go live on Twitter, but I didn't have time because on Twitter I have to also go live and then press go live once I get the stream key. I've done it on Instagram, so I already know how to set it up to get the stream key. I haven't done it on Twitter, so I'll figure that out for next week, and then I'll go live maybe on Twitter instead of Instagram. I'm just sort of playing with what the third platform is that I'm going, since I'm paying for it, that I go live on. Right? Yeah, start tagging people too. Thank you, Denise. Start tagging people and get them in here. Okay, so it's Friday night. Law of One. If you're in the Law of One chat, you saw a picture of my shirt that I ordered, the front and the back of the shirt that I ordered, that I put on the front. I put the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. And on the back, I put religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it, so that I can wear that shirt. I'm not wearing it right now, but I got it today, took pictures of it and posted it on my Facebook page. I'll post it everywhere else too, and posted it on my in the chat. I don't currently have those for sale on a website or anything. That shirt cost me like $45 just to have it made and shipped to me. So I'm going to start working with somebody to see if I can get it. If not, I will create them myself. I'll just buy T-shirts in various colors, and then I'll get the thing I can print out, and then I'll iron it onto shirts because it'll be cheaper for me. I'm pretty sure in the long run, because if they're going to charge me like $40 a shirt, that means that if I'm going to sell them to people, I got to charge you guys even more than that, which you guys could order it directly from the company and I wouldn't make any money off of it at all. However, you can do that if you want. If so, contact me, because I did save it to the company that I got it from on their site. So you can just go there and click on it and make a modification like this is the template, but I want it in this color. Instead of because I got it on a black shirt with I think it's orange highlight or yellow highlight. Yellow, the gold, same color as my book. So the cover of my book. So I got it in that same color to be on the shirt, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. So if you guys want to make one yourself, order it from that company, which, like I said, just for me here, and I think they're an American company, but don't quote me. It cost me $45 with the shipping to get it here. And it's one of those companies that's like supposedly gets it to you like super fast, although it took me 10 days to get that shirt from them. But I'm sure that if you pay for it, you can get it overnight to you or a couple of days later, because they talk about that. So anyways, yeah, and I wanted to talk about that, right? Denise said, let's see, and we'll wear them on the Zoom meeting, right? Yeah, I know, right? So I will be wearing my shirt on the Zoom meeting. But I don't think I'll do it on Zoom because I fired them. Although I think I still have an account there. I'm just not paying for it. So I could do a 45-minute gig on there, but that's all on Zoom right now. So I'll be doing it on here, but we won't have to be live. And the difference is here I can do I think up to 10 people in the audience with me. And on Zoom I could do like 100. But I'm not paying Zoom the $130 a year anymore. For that feature. So I'll go on other people's Zoom, but I'm not paying them for it. So I canceled that, but I know if I log in there, it'll automatically charge me. That's what happened last time. I hadn't been there for 2 years. I logged in, and as soon as I logged into that account, they immediately charged me for the professional account that I had, even though I wasn't using it as a professional account. I was just logging in to log on to someone else's meeting. So because of that, I fired them because I was like, you guys didn't charge me because I wasn't even here. And then as soon as I logged in, you charged me. So I didn't like that idea. And since I was using StreamYard anyways to do my podcast, I just fired them. So I just keep a free account there now, right? So it won't be Zoom when I do it, but I think Cassie, she was talking about doing it as well. And she is probably going to use Zoom because she doesn't have StreamYard, and I know she has Zoom. So she'll be using Zoom for her class that she gets together, right? And I'll be sitting in bugging you guys anyways, and she'll probably be doing that on mine as well, just because, right? So we will be talking about a time, since Rick can't be here now on Fridays because his schedule changed. It looks like his Thursday and his Friday is when he's off, which is our Wednesday and our Thursday. Like today is Friday for me over here in the United States, and it's Saturday morning for Rick, and he had to go to work. So I think I'll do Wednesday, our Wednesday, which is Rick's Thursday, but I'm going to talk to him and find out if his days off are going to change, because right now the overlapping day is he wasn't sure if it was going to be Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday for him. Well, the Thursday is our Wednesday, and that was the only overlapping, depending on which day was going to change for him. So for him to be in here, I'll be doing it on that, but I'll check with Rick and find out so that he can be there for that one, even though he can't be live for this one anymore. But we won't be live on air to do that one. That way you guys don't have to worry about anything we talk about going out to the world or the public. Okay. Joanne, welcome. Okay. So like I said, share this out. And get more people in here. I shared it to a couple of places, but it's Friday. Who knows what's going on in the world? I don't think there's anything crazy going on in the world, but I haven't been watching the news since, well, I guess I watched it about an hour ago for about 10 minutes. But I've been running crazy just trying to get everything going for today. Penny, welcome. Right. Penny says, damn, I forgot what day it was. Let's see. That's why I'm saying to everybody to tag everybody who's supposed to be in here, right? Okay. So last time Ra was talking about, we're on session 60, question number 16. I think I backed up to 15. Dawn was asking questions about the pyramids and the energy inside the pyramid, and went on to talking about the pyramid over in the Bermuda Triangle. You just asked that question of whether or not Ra created that, and Ra stated no, that was created by an 8th dimensional group of people that were working with people here on Earth prior to Ra's coming here on Earth. So that's a pyramid that's older, and it's actually a step pyramidal complex, not the standard one that from like in the Giza Plateau. But there's multiple of those, as well as the step pyramid type of pyramid all over the planet. So Dawn was asking Ra about that, and that's where we are. So the next question is Dawn's literally picking up right there where he's saying that people were working with other people here on Earth, and who was that? And then we're going to get involved in that as the discussion starts going right now. Right. Thank you, Denise, for saying hello over there on, I don't know if there's anybody on Instagram live. There's one person over there that joined, but hasn't said anything in the chat. Right. So hi over there on Instagram. If you're over there, that it says you joined, if you're a friend of mine and you joined the Law of One over there live on Instagram, or popped in to see what it was about. Okay. So if you say something in the chat over there, it'll filter in here, so I'll know that you're there. Same thing with YouTube. Like Denise just said, hi, everyone over on YouTube. And she just popped in and said, hi, Leo. I just wanted to share here as well. Thank you, Denise, for doing that. Okay. So Ra was asking, or Dawn was asking about that pyramid underneath the water that we didn't know about in 1981 to 1984 when they were channeling this. We didn't discover that officially on this earth until 2016. But there was rumor about it not just from the Law of One, but from other people around the world who had rumored the same thing with the Dragon Triangle. And in 2015, they found that there's a step pyramid under the water in the Dragon Triangle, and you can look these up online. You can see images and film of it on YouTube, and images on the internet, both. But we didn't know about them, even though, a lot of people say, well, Carla made that up. Well, Carla got real lucky if she made that up, because not once but twice she said the pyramid in the Bermuda Triangle, there was a pyramid under the water, and that was what was causing the issues. And there's a pyramid in the Pacific Ocean under where the Dragon Triangle is off the coast of Japan. And both of those have been venerated, but it took 35 years for anybody to actually swim down there and go, hey, look at this, and take pictures of it and realize that it's exactly at the position that Carla said when she was channeling Ra in 1981. Okay, so I'm going to do a sound check now. I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to do a sound check on. And sorry, I was reading the chat at the same time as saying that. So I'm going to go ahead and start this question. I believe we're on question 15 now. I backed up one question, and you guys let me know if you guys can hear it. Okay, whether or not I have to turn the sound up or not, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
60.15 questioner. You mentioned working with one other group other than the Egyptians. Who were they? Ra. I am Ra. These entities were those of South America. We divided our forces to work within these two cultures. 60.16 questioner. The pyramid shape then, as I understand it, was deemed by your social memory complete.
Thank you for letting me know that it sounds good. Okay, so Ra is talking about them. They were working with somebody, and this is why I backed this up, because this is important. Also, why I stopped there last week, because this is important right here. So I'm going to let Ra talk, and then we'll break down someone in South America, a group of people, right? A race of people in South America is who Ra was working with, and I believe that was prior to or at the same time. We'll find out the timeline as the Egyptians.
At that time to be of paramount importance is, shall I say, a physical training aid for spiritual development. At this particular time in the evolution of our planet, it seems that you place little or no emphasis on this shape. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. It is our honor/duty to attempt to remove the distortions that the use of this shape has caused in the thinking of your peoples and in the activities of some of your entities. We do not deny that such shapes are efficacious, nor do we withhold the general gist of this efficacy. However, we wish to offer our understanding, limited though it is, that contrary to our naive beliefs many thousands of years ago, the optimum shape for initiation does not exist. Let us expand upon this point. When we were aided by 6th density entities during our own 3rd density experiences, we, being less bellicose in the extreme, found this teaching to be of help. In our naivete in 3rd density, we had not developed the interrelationships of your barter or money system and power. We were, in fact, a more philosophical 3rd density planet than your own, and our choices of polarity were much more centered about the, shall we say, understanding of sexual energy transfers and the appropriate relationships between self and other self. We spent a much larger portion of our space/time working with the unmanifested being. In this less complex atmosphere, it was quite instructive to have this learn/teaching device, and we benefited without the distortions we found occurring among your peoples. We have recorded these differences meticulously in the great record of creation, that such naivete shall not be necessary again. At this space/time we may best serve you, we believe, by stating that the pyramid for meditation along with other rounded and arched or pointed circular shapes is of help to you. However, it is our observation that due to the complexity of influences upon the unmanifested being at this space/time nexus among your planetary peoples, it is best that the progress of the mind/body/spirit complex take place without, as you call them, training aids, because when using a training aid, an entity then takes upon itself the law of responsibility for the quickened or increased rate of learn/teaching.
Okay, so I wanted to stop there because there was a lot that was being said. First, Michelle, welcome. Reese, welcome. Right, and I just realized because Denise jumped over to Instagram and said something in the chat over there. That chat does not filter into the StreamYard chat, so I'll have to keep checking back over there. Thank you for doing that over there, by the way, on Instagram, Denise. So, okay, so yeah, Michelle Harris, welcome. Reese Pope, welcome. Share this out, guys. Okay, so literally, Ra said right here, and I said this last week, but I wanted to reiterate it again. Raw said that they were unaware of the bellicosity of the human race. However, knowing they were unaware of the percentage of evil people that are here, or people in service to self that are here on the planet, which is 14%, even though everybody thinks that it's like 50% or above, because 1% of that 14% owns everything, and they're the ones driving the narrative on television. So they make it seem like there's far more evil in the universe and on our planet, because they want you to believe that you have no hope, that they're in charge and you can't do anything about it. So that's part of the modus operandi that was brought here with the Orion Crusaders and their knowledge of what's going on here. So then Raw was talking about having the responsibility, knowing what's going on, and people down here knowing what's going on and having the responsibility to then do something, get involved, and change your ways because of the dynamic of what's going on the earth. And people don't know that it's 86% in service to others and only 14% in service to self, because people don't. They look around and they think, if you're watching the news, if you're watching most of the programming on television, they still show that good guys always win. But the only reason they show that is because the audience won't watch the show if they continue showing bad guys winning. That's why people tune out the news, because on the news, they're pretty much saying all the bad guys are in charge. And because of that, people are going away from the legacy news. Legacy news just isn't intelligent enough to realize that it's dying. And it doesn't care right now because the majority of the people in the United States are above the age of 60. And those people are locked into television. And that's what they do, is watch TV all day long. So they know that the majority of the people are still tuning in. Even though they do realize they've lost the audience between 0 and 45, none of those people, only the higher end, tune in to see what's going on. And they're starting to see things like when they do events on their news platforms, that the ratings are so low, they figure out that it's all of them watching it. So when they do something political and no one tunes in, and they'll be like, well, we had 10 million people. Those 10 million people are all the news broadcasters around the United States and the world, and then all the politicians in the United States and around the world, and their family and friends. That's it. Okay? So that makes them, so it's them. It's the 14%. They're the ones tuning into the shows. They're the only ones tuning into some of those shows. Okay? But it's enough to keep them on the air, because the same people who own those channels own so much other stuff. They're just floating that. Like CNN should have been off the air about 5 years ago because their ratings have been so crap. They used to be one of the best rated television platforms on the planet until they went woke. And now they're down to their primetime shows gets less than 800,000 views. Right? I mean, there's people on off channels that are on live podcasts on YouTube that, and in that time slot, that get 5 million people watching it live. So that literally people on TikTok are getting more views live when they go live than CNN is worldwide on the cable channel. That should tell you something, or should tell them something, but it doesn't. They just have an agenda, and they're just trying to continue to sell it, right? That's just like today. Well, no, I'm not going to talk about that. I was going to talk about my stuff going on, but I don't need to put that on the air. But yeah, you have this legacy everything that you need to look into. And I'm trying to educate people, not just for spirituality, though that's what we talk about primarily with the Law of One and what I teach, being a spiritual coach. But let's do commercials to that first and then move on, right? So before I do that, some of the information that people need to learn about is nutrition and what's being done here in the United States. If you live in the UK, you don't have this issue as much as we do. The things that you do have going on over there are far less than over here in the United States. And I tell everybody, there's people that are doing that now, comparing American processed food, Post cereal and Lay's potato chips with what's up in Canada and what's over in the UK. And people over here are going, that can't be right. No, it is, because our food is banned in over 30 countries because it's not even considered food. Our bread that is made here from all the bread companies is not considered food in almost every country on the planet because it's so fake. It's not even considered food anymore. They have to put things on like the cheese that they've had here in America. American cheese is called food stuff or food product. It's not even called food. It's called the product now. And they have to put stuff like I have some cereal for my mother that has genetically modified organisms in it. That's banned from most countries around the world. Any genetically modified corn or any of that stuff. People just in this country don't know about it. So we have to get involved in teaching people this. And that's happening on all the platforms. So the old people that are watching television aren't seeing it because there's none of that programming being told on the television. But everybody else that's young is seeing all of these videos that are being posted on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all over the other platforms, and then shared to all those platforms that they're aware of it. So it's going to change. It's just going to take some time for it to change. But how you get it to change is stop buying it. Read the ingredients. Stop buying stuff that has a bunch of ingredients in it, right? Stop buying it. They're going to change. The only way that you can make these evil people that are in charge, the 1% that own everything, to change their ways is you have to make it profitable for them to change. Okay, so there's a mathematical equation that they showed you in the movie of Fight Club, where Tyler Durden. No, it wasn't Tyler Durden character. It wasn't Tyler Durden. It was what's his name? His character. I can't think of his name right now. The actor who played the other part, not Brad Pitt, because he played Tyler Durden, but Edward Norton. His character, he literally, his job was that he was an assessor for a large automobile company that he left nameless. And his job was to go to crash sites and investigate how many people died and how much it was going to cost the company and assess whether or not the mathematical equation of the cost is less to pay the family members off or do a recall. When it costs the company more money, passes the threshold of more money to pay off each individual family, and that doing a recall for worldwide products becomes less expensive, they do a recall. That's a real thing in real life. Okay. So they do the same thing with food products. They do the same thing with everything. All politicians will only do things if they're not gaining money from it. Or if it's more lucrative to them, they'll gain more money by doing it. It's the only reason they do it. Just like right now in the United States, we have an election year. We're about 30 days, 29 days away from an election. Right now, all politicians will kneel down and blow you if they have to get your vote, to get money, okay? They'll do whatever it takes right now to tell you that they're going to do whatever you want them to do to get your vote. And then after they get your vote and they get put into office, then most of the time, up until Donald Trump in 2016, which they don't want me saying that, and I'll probably get banned from saying that, but it's true here in the United States, he actually did most of what he said he was going to do to get elected. First president in the history of the United States in the last 100 years who did anything they said they were going to do when they were campaigning. Okay, none of them did maybe one or two. And they'd be like, I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to fix that. They get the vote, they get into office, and they say, well, I'm trying to work on it, but there's just no way of doing it. Sorry, not my fault. It's those other guys' fault. And that's what they both do, right? So you have to make it lucrative for them to want to change, or they won't, because they're making too much money. So governments like England banned American food and banned the products that were in American food. And that forced the American food companies to make better food, natural food, to sell the same product over there in the UK. Okay, same thing with Canada. Okay, so, but nothing that hasn't happened here in the United States because the people here just buy food, and they're brainwashed into not growing any food, not cooking any food, and just being lazy and running out and getting fast food and running out and getting processed food to take care of everything. Well, the inflation that has hit this world has gotten a lot of people rethinking that and deciding to start cooking for themselves, which is seriously the powers that should not be are not liking that at all, because when people start doing that, they start eating better and they start feeling better. They don't go back to buying that legacy crap anymore. Okay. So we have to get people to go back to the way it was in the United States in the 1970s. When I was a little boy, we had a garden in the backyard. As a matter of fact, the people over in Europe, the yard that's behind your house, you guys still refer to that as your garden. Over there in Europe, that's a garden. Okay, over here in the United States, that's called the backyard. You got the front yard and the backyard. They've changed the narrative. You don't even call it a garden anymore. So you're not even thinking, what is a garden? Well, it's a place where you grow things. Edibles, plants, trees, flowers, where you grow things. A garden, where you make it pretty. No, it's the backyard. It's just that yard in the back of the house that you let the dog out and you shits and pisses all over the place. And you go out there every now and then and you clean it all up. That's it. You go out there and you barbecue and you come back in because it smells like dog poop. Okay, that's what they try to get all Americans to do. So they took away the idea and the narrative that it was a garden and it's completely just a yard. Why? They don't want, that's brainwashing. They don't want you to think about garden. What is a garden? It's a place you grow. What do you grow? Oh, I should be planting food there. So because all the way up until about 1980, people grew food in their backyards, in their garden, in the United States. Then we became so prosperous after the communists got elected here in the 70s. We went through 10 years from 1970 to 1980 of communism ruling most of the country in the United States. Everybody voted them out. Now they're trying to come back in. Everybody voted them out and got rid of them and made it bad to be a communist in the United States. And because of that, because of all the food shortages, gas shortages, and problems we had because of the communism, which they're trying to sell again, here we are 70 years later, and most people are dead that were alive back then, except for young kids like me who are in our 50s now. So it's 50 years ago, not 70 years ago. And literally, now we're back to that. But in the 80s, Ronald Reagan got in and he changed the whole narrative of the United States. And we made so much money that people just stopped growing stuff and started because it was cheap and you could just buy it in stores. The problem with that is they made a lot of money for the people in the United States, but then that caused everything to go from a gallon of gasoline in 1978 was 25 cents and it's now almost $10 in the United States. Okay. So that made a pack of cigarettes that was 33 cents in 1978 is $10 to $12 now or more. I don't know what they are anymore because I haven't smoked since 2013. But I hear tell they're like 15, 20 bucks a pack now here in the United States. So the problem is that, a house that was back then $25,000 is now $250,000 to $500,000. So everybody made money, but then the price of everything went up so much in the last 40 years that it is insane. Prices quadrupled. They're 300%, 400% higher now than they were at the end of that recession that we had in the 1970s. So, and then, of course, the stock market crashed and everything crashed. Well, that's going to happen again because of what's going on here. So it's either going to do that and everybody's going to be forced to grow their own food or people are going to make that choice to fix that, right? Okay, so to get back on point, Peter, welcome. Did I miss anybody? Ashley, welcome. That means if Ashley's here, that means a good possibility that your girl's here too, right? That Pamela's here somewhere, right? I don't know if she said hello because I wasn't looking at the chat. I just happened to look up at the chat. Okay, so everybody around the world you guys need to make sure they don't stop you from farming, that they don't stop you from growing your own food, that they don't stop you from having livestock because that's the way they do it. They get rid of all that. They make it illegal for you. That way you have to go to the store and buy their food. You have no choice. Then they hold you for ransom because then they give you crap food. And you don't have any choice unless you pass laws that ban them from doing that. But if you're going to do that, you better pass laws allowing yourself to grow food and have livestock. Otherwise, they'll just take it away. First thing they do is go, you can't have a chicken or a rooster inside of town because it's too loud, sound ordinance. And then they're like, can't have eggs, can't have chickens. And then they're like, yeah, you can't have a cow either because cow farts are screwing up the atmosphere. No cows. And that way, now you don't have any milk, you don't have any butter, you don't have any cream, you don't have anything that comes with from having a cow. You don't have eggs and you don't have anything that comes from that. And then they say no livestock, and now you can't have bacon. Now you don't have any meat or any poultry at all. So now where do you have to get all that stuff from? The store, which is what they want you to do. Do you see? So they take that all away from you and they make it illegal to even now plant your own vegetables. And where do you got to get it? From their store. Do you understand what's happening to you? And then you can't grow anything in your yard at all unless it's poisonous and it looks pretty. And that's what they do in front of businesses too. Same thing. They outlaw you growing anything that you can eat, and they get rid of that. And that way you have to go to their store. And then they get you into the idea of digital currency. They don't want you having any cash. Who was it? The UFC fighter just talked about that, where if you use a credit card and you go to the store and you charge something, the credit card company gets 1.5% of your $50. And then if somebody takes that $50 that you charged at their store and they go and charge on a credit card, the credit card company takes 1.5% of that, what they had left over of the $50, takes it now, the same thing. And the government taxes that money, so you're losing money. But if you use cash and you give it to somebody to pay for something, they get the $50 bill in their hand, and then they can go and spend that and break that into smaller amounts. Do they still have to pay taxes on it? That's another subject for another time. But yes, but the point is, the credit card companies are charging you money for spending their money unless you pay it off the second that you spend it. And even then they charge you a finance fee. So either way, they're giving you credit and then they're charging you money for it. And then they get you hooked on it. You can't buy anything unless you have credit. So you have to use their credit cards so that you have credit, so that you can buy something, because they're the banks, they're the corporations who are selling you the house. Do you see? And so that means you have to play their game. I wrote a book about this that nobody wanted to hear about. I was just talking about it today. Nobody wanted to listen to the book because it says you have to take responsibility for yourself, start cooking your own foods, and cook organic foods, and start paying attention to who's charging you what, and realize that you have to play their game to be able to get ahead, and know that that's what you're doing, and only do it for that purposes, and don't get caught in it, because the more credit you have and the more money you spend on credit, the more money they charge you for finance fees. So if you're going to do that, you want to charge credit and pay it off as soon as you can. If not, charge it and pay it by the end of the month, like you would with an American Express card, or what's the other ones? There's a few where when you charge it, you have to pay off the entire charge at the end of the month. Otherwise, you can't keep that card. You have to start acting like that, and that way you don't charge what you don't have, because the finance fees are what get you. Right? They charge you a lot of money in finance fees. And so long as you're paying it, they don't care if you keep a high balance. They want you to. That's better. They tell you it's not. If you check your credit score, they'll tell you it's not good to have that big balance. But they're not going to tell you, they're not going to lower your credit rating. They're going to keep your credit rating as long as you're paying it. They just won't give you any more credit for fear that you're going to charge it way up and not pay it all off. But they want you hooked on. That's your slave chain. They want you hooked on their payment. So, sorry, now I'm starting to read Reese said no eggs in stores here right now. Oh, see? So if you guys would, so that means that they've already created a shortage. I don't know if their shortage is created because your communist country, your communist government is creating it, or if they're doing it because they're telling you that they all have mad cow disease or avian flu and they're killing them all off. Or because they're just not allowing the eggs. I don't know what your reason for that over there, according to your government in Australia, Reese. But that sucks that you don't have eggs. You have a shortage already. That's what they're trying to get that happening everywhere in the world, and it's because of their regulations. And they know it. They know that the regulations are what causes it, and they don't care. They're trying to do that because they're trying to force you into, it's the Hegelian dialectic. What they're doing is they're creating a problem, and they already have the solution to the problem when they created it, but they can't tell you that. And what they're doing is they want communism, which is going to exacerbate that same problem. But you don't know that yet because you haven't fully bought into communism. And by then it's too late, because then they take charge of everything. They already got rid of your guns over there. So that's the beginning of them moving into where they're moving into now. So then what they do is they tell you, all these people are gouging you on prices, so we have to regulate the price. And when they regulate the price, then it lowers the incentive for people to deliver, and they raise the price of their product because they're trying to make money. Or they have to deliver a less product at the same price to continue making money. This is what they're doing all around the world, and including the United States now. And they use that to then tell you rich people and all these companies are ripping you off from these higher gouging of prices, We need to have regulations on that. And to do that, we have to have this form of government that's called the democratic socialist idea. And we're not taking away your rights. We're not communists, but we need to have control as the government to force them to pay their fair share of taxes. And then you say, that's a great idea. You give them that power. And then they raise the taxes on the rich people who are selling you that product. And now, because they're paying so much more, they got to raise higher prices. And then they say, we can't let them raise those prices. We have to force them to keep the prices low. And then what happens is they stop making as much because they're forced to sell you a product where they're not making any money. So then the companies go out of business because they can't afford to stay in business anymore because they have high taxes and they're not allowed to sell it for a profit anymore because now there's a regulation on the price and they're being taxed out of the market. Then they stop selling the product until there's 3 or 4 companies left over, and then the government takes control of those companies. And then guess what? Now all of a sudden they turn the profit and they start making all kinds of money. And they get rid of they don't show you this, but they get rid of those taxes because we're not going to tax the government because we're the government. So we're not going to tax ourselves. So the tax goes away. And guess what? Now we can make these at a cheaper price for all of you guys. And what they did was eliminated the people that were making the product and took control of it for the government. And now they're still charging you that same higher price, but now you have eggs back in the store. And all of the eggs are now illegal. You can't make them anywhere in your country except for the companies that the government owns. And they'll do that with every single industry that you have until the government owns all of the industries. And that is communism. And that's how it goes from democratic socialism, which is a lie because those two terms are conflicting. Socialism and democracy are completely opposite. You can't have a democratic socialist government. You can't. Okay, they're opposing points of view. That would be like saying I'm right left-handed. Okay, I'm right left-handed. You can be ambidextrous. That means you're both. But I'm actually right left-handed. So I'm right-handed, but from a left-handed perspective. You can't say I'm for free enterprise and government control. Socialism is government control. Look it up. So democratic free enterprise, republic, government control of that free enterprise. That's called communism. That's government control. Okay. And that's regulation. And they'll do that and they'll regulate people just out of the business. And that's what they're trying to do everywhere. They're doing it here in the United States. They're doing it in every country. It's a Hegelian dialectic. They create the scenario, force the people by regulations to not be able to produce, and overtax them then they start having to close, and all the small companies and independent companies go out of business faster, and they sell. Most of them will try to sell to the larger companies so they make money instead of having to close their doors. A large company just buys up all the small ones. Then they're a big giant company, and then the government goes after them unless they're paying the government off, and they work with the government. And it's usually those people are the oligarchs who are getting the governments to go communist anyways. You guys need to take a civics class. You need to take an economics class. You need to take a socialism class. You need to learn what these things are so that you realize that what I'm saying is not made up. It's true. Okay. So let's move back to, let's start with all of that is the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, which is what Ra is warning about. Okay. Literally, and I wrote about it in my book. Let me do a commercial for my book, right? Be the arrow. I don't know who you are, but welcome. I just saw them over there on YouTube. They just said something over there. So if you see anything on Instagram, I'll have to check and see if you guys say anything over there because it doesn't come up in the chat. But YouTube does filter in here, and so does Facebook. It filters in here. Okay, so let me do a commercial for my book, and then we'll get on to talking about Ra. Okay, so here's the book that I just wrote. It just came out a couple of months ago. It's called The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways, which tells about the information that has been taken out of all of the religions by these people that are in service to self, that you know as the Orion Crusaders or the Anunnaki or any other Bilderbergers or any other secret society, their agenda to keep knowledge away from you so that you don't ascend, so that you don't wake up, so that you don't remember what's going on here on the earth, who you are and how to ascend to heaven, so they can control, the 14% can control everything that you do, by brainwashing you and doing all the things that we just talked about. Okay, so literally that's the information that the supposed Anunnaki brought here. And interesting, and then I'll get on to Raw again. Interesting, I just posted for some of you in the Law of One chat over there on Messenger the other day, the last weekend, the alien interview from Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, the alien that didn't crash land, that didn't happen at Roswell, and that they didn't interrogate for like 3 weeks. And the information from that was put together in this reality, weirdly, 2008, but when I got a hold of it originally, back in 2016, it had just been published. And when I just looked it up again, it said 2008. So during one of the timeline shifts, that went backwards a little bit in time, the publication. However, it's still the same. And in that, Errol, the alien that didn't exist, that didn't happen, that wasn't being interviewed by the CIA, military industrial complex, and the nurse Matilda McElroy during the 1947 Roswell incident, or after the incident, she actually stated in there that they are the Anunnaki. Okay, and who are they? If you guys know anything about the 25-part series that I did on that, she's talking about calling themselves well, what did they call themselves? I just saw it. They call themselves something. They're an expeditionary force, and I forgot what they call themselves. But they're actually a rock opera, a military group of people who are supposedly our saviors. Does this sound familiar to you? It's the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders. And she says that her people were what people call the Anunnaki, and that they were wrong in who they're calling the Anunnaki. And it was actually her people. Well, her people are the Orion Crusaders. And everything that she says in there is the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, 100%. So she admitted it back in 1947 that she was part of the Orion Crusaders, part of the Anunnaki. So everybody who today says the Anunnaki are these great people who are really nice and teaching us all kinds of good things, you should go and listen to that 4-hour interview, that 4-hour video that's on YouTube, and you should pay attention to what she's saying there and what she's telling them, because she says we're the Anunnaki, them. Okay, that they are the Anunnaki, and she's like, they're atheists, they're a military force. They're telling us, everybody here, you're in prison, you're in a penal colony, and you can't get out of here. We're not going to help you. We're leaving, and we might be back in about 5,000 years. We might figure out how to get you off this rock in about 5,000 years, but we really don't care about you, but we own you. And we've reserved the right to at any time come down here and take whatever we want from you. That's a malevolent, good race of people, isn't it? That are our saviors, that are helping us as humanity down here on Earth. No, they just defeated the people that were supposedly owned this section of the universe, or of our galaxy, and now they're on their way taking over the center of the galaxy, which is weird because here's the thing: according to science, the entire universe is 6.8 billion years old. According to Errol, she's 12 trillion years old. Okay, so the entire universe, she claims, is more than 100 trillion years old. Yet science says it's only about 6.5 billion years old. Right? But, we'll listen to what Errol had to say as well. Right? So yeah, she sounds like a politician. Absolutely. All the things that she was saying, Ashley, 100%. So if you haven't listened to it, you should. And if you want, you can listen to my version of it back in 2017, where I did 25 episodes talking about it. Although I was staying at more of a third dimensional idea. Same thing when I did the Law of One the first time, not going as 4D, 5D, because it was, almost 10 years ago now when I started doing that. Okay, so let's get back on point. So now Raw's asking, or Dawn's asking Raw about working with other people, and Raw's talking about working with the people of South America. And let's continue with that, okay?
If this greater understanding, if we may use this misnomer, is not put into practice in the moment-by-moment experience of the entity, then the usefulness of the training aid becomes negative. 60.17 Questioner: Thank you. I don't know if this question will result in any usable direction, but I think I must ask it. What was the Ark of the Covenant, and what was its use? Ra, I am Ra. The Ark of the Covenant was that place wherein those things most holy, according to the understanding of the one called Moishi, were placed. The article placed therein has been called by your peoples 2 tablets called the 10 Commandments.
Moishi is Moses, guys. Okay. So he's talking about Moses placing the tablets of the 10 Commandments in the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant is the tabernacle, and the Ark of the Covenant is inside your brain. It's actually right here. Inside the brain, it actually goes from here to here in your brain, and the wings of the cherubim are inside your head. It's actually part of your brain case. You're part of your brain that forms that protective cover. So literally, it's a physical representation, just like the pyramid. This is why I stopped after we were talking last week about the pyramid. The pyramid itself is the same place in your head, and it represents the same thing. The pyramid was created, the one at Giza was created so that the interior was your brainstem and your brain, and you would go through the steps of, in a physical way, to show what the Christ oil does within your body. I talk about that in my book, in your body and what that does. Okay, and I explain that in my book as well. So the Ark of the Covenant is the exact same, just described to a different group of people in a different religion. So the pyramid being Egyptian, the Ark of the Covenant, even though it was people that were in Egypt, it was the Hebrews coming out of Egypt during the Exodus, and then getting into what we now know as the Hebrew Talmud that was given to Moses by God. So you'll find that there's a representation in all religions worldwide of that exact same story. I talk about that in this book that I published, and I'm writing more about it to show in all the other religions the representations of that and the balancing of the chakras. You can look up the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and see that the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, especially the first 7 books or chapters in the Emerald Tablets, are about each chakra and balancing the chakras. Just like the letters to the churches in the Hebrew Bible, or in the Christian Bible, in the Revelation of Jesus, in the letter to the churches. The letters to the churches is how to balance your chakras. Okay. And I talk about that in more detail in the book that I'm currently writing, which will be published in a couple of years once I get it all put together and published. Okay. So now what we're talking about here is the physical embodiment of this process that Moses was carrying around, that they were all carrying around, that God gave them. Only they knew what was going on back then and what that represented. In fact, even them traveling for 40 years in the desert is actually part of that process. And I'm not going to get involved in all of that conversation right now, because that could take me an hour just to explain that to you. But that information will be in the next book that I publish. And most theologians are aware of that. And they talk about it, at least true theologians, because if people get caught, linear-minded people get caught in a linear fashion that is a trap that they don't realize they get caught in. They're very thorough. I'm not saying there's anything against them. They're very thorough people. If you're a linear person, you know what I'm talking about. Everything has to be in order, and you go from thing to thing to thing to thing, and it's methodical. And if it wasn't for linear people, we wouldn't have science at all in the universe. It's the linear-minded people who keep everyone honest and on track to make sure that everything is in its place, so that we're looking at everything thoroughly. So don't get me wrong. However, linear-minded people in certain instances get stuck. For instance, when people are looking and they're in a theological college and they're becoming a theologian, and their job is theology, and they're looking at religions, they read about the religion and they're learning about the religion, but what they're not doing is paying attention to what that religion is saying, because they're not trying to be a religious scholar. They're a theologian, so they're like a dog that jumps through a hoop. You go jump, he jumps through the hoop. He doesn't understand why he's jumping through the hoop. He doesn't understand what the hoop is for other than he's jumping through it. The same thing happens with a linear person. They know that the loop is there and they have to jump through the loop to go to the next loop, to jump through the next loop, to jump through it, but they can't pass 4 loops and jump a loop. They have to jump through every single loop. Problem is they're not looking at the loop. They're not understanding why the course was set up for. What was the course even here for? How is this course the same as another course, different from another course? They see it from that religious standpoint, and then they don't pay attention to the similarities as much. And when they do, they say, well, this is an older scroll, so therefore they must have borrowed from them. They don't investigate to find out if that's what truly happened or not until later. And because then they're saying we need to go and see if there's an older scroll that they got their information from. And some of them get obsessed with just doing that. And they're just now looking for a new scroll and a new scroll and a new scroll and a new scroll instead of paying attention to what all the scrolls are actually saying, that it is the same. And when that stopped and why that stopped. Why did they stop telling you the same thing? When did they stop telling you the same thing? And what are they now all telling you that might be the same or different? Today. Okay. That's what my book is about, and that's what the next book is about, because they don't do that, and they're too busy going, well, if the Mesopotamian scroll is the oldest scroll, then we have to see if there's an older scroll than the Mesopotamian scroll, because everybody's copied from the Mesopotamian scroll. Weirdly, that people have the same story that have never had any contact with the people that were in Mesopotamia when they wrote it, and their culture is older than the Mesopotamian scroll. Well, then the Mesopotamians must have got it from them. Who do the Mesopotamians claim they got it from? That particular scroll that everybody says is the oldest scroll, the Mesopotamian scroll says it's based on a scroll that was 1,200 years older than that. And that scroll came out of Arcadia. That's the Greeks from Arcadia next door. Okay? And when you say to the Greeks, this is what they have in history, and they claim you guys got it to them, they go, yeah, well, it's not ours. We got it from the Egyptians. What? And it's from an older scroll the Egyptians had. So then when you trace it back to Egypt and you go, there's this older scroll that they claim was the oldest scroll. And they're like, yeah, we got that. So you guys were the ones who created it? Nope. It came from an older society than ours. We have the scroll from. Where's that from? That's from a society from 77,000 years ago that died 77,000 years ago. And we found some of their material, and it's from that society. Why was that not told to the world until now? Most people don't even know about that. And they say that the Mesopotamian scroll is the oldest scroll. I know that, not because I made it up, because I researched it. So if I did, that means other people did. Unless no one is doing that. To know that the oldest scroll that we have today that we think is the Mesopotamian scroll is the oldest scroll literally dates back to a society that was living in Turkey as their home of origin. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where the Egyptians got the scroll. They may have got it in Egypt. Oh, wait, what other scroll comes from that time period? The Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Oopsie, what? Wait, when was that? Was that 77,000 years ago, or was that in between there sometime when Atlantis sank? Now we need to look at that. So were the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, did that also come from the society prior to the Atlanteans? Because Thoth said, I am Thoth the Atlantean. So Thoth put himself in the tablets as an Atlantean priest. And if Atlantis flooded during the flood, which was 12,000 years ago, we're still short. What is that? 75,000 years or 65,000 years from the oldest scroll. So has everybody on the whole planet borrowed that from that one thing? Now we're back to trying to figure those people out. And then what? Do you see my point? So instead of going, well, what do all these scrolls have in common then? Because if they all have the same stories and the same stories haven't changed, even though everything changes, if I tell you a story and you go tell someone else a story and they tell another person that story and that person tells another person and that person tells me that story, it's not going to be the same story that I told that person. That's called the grapevine here in the United States. I don't know what you guys call it in your own country. People embellish, yet we have all these other scrolls that haven't been embellished and all these stories like the Jesus story 12 times happened prior to the one where the Jesus' name is used as the character. That's why a lot of the Hebrews and a couple of the sects of the Hasidic Jews say that Jesus was just created by Romans to control the Jews. Well, why wouldn't they just then change some of the stuff in the Hebrew Bible to, oh, wait, they did that too, didn't they, apparently, right? So what you're saying is they created the Savior that was already undisturbed 12 times on this planet in 12 different countries, where the story was identical to the Word over and over and over and over again on this earth, by 12 different groups of people who don't know each other, never knew each other, hated each other, went to war with each other, and wanted to be, sort of like today, the right religion. But that one story never changed. And then the Romans made it up one more time and didn't change anything again. That's weird that people keep making up this fake story that never changes. And it's the only fake story made up that never changed. All other stories that are fake, that are made up, have all been different stories that are not the same. Or are they? Okay. So you have to figure that out and believe that. Why am I telling you this? Because we're going to talk about something here in just a minute, right? Chinese whispers. Yeah, there's whispers of Chinese information and some of that stuff too. Like, for instance, hell. There was no hell in the Hebrew religion. There was no hell in the Christian religion until the Council of Nicaea, when they were trying to incorporate the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Western Orthodox Church and the Southern Orthodox Church and the Northern Orthodox Church into one church, and take out 168 books out of the Bible and throw those away and kill anybody who wanted to put them back in, which is what they did. And the only reason we know that is because a bunch of those books that were taken out and everybody was murdered over were found in the Dead Sea, that were buried by a sect from the religion at the time, who refused and wanted to keep those books because they didn't think they should be taken out of the Bible, and they were murdered by the church, all of them, to shut them up. And they thought they found all of the scrolls that they hid, but apparently they didn't, because we now have the scrolls that were found in the Dead Sea area that we call the Dead Sea Scrolls, that were all these books that were taken out of the Bible. Okay? And I've read them. And you should too. So they changed things. And if they did, why didn't they edit that, is my point. They didn't edit the Jesus story 13 times. But they edited everything else. Why? Why did they not edit that one story over and over and over and over throughout all of the time that we know of? What if there's more before that? We don't know, because we don't have history that goes back far enough to find out if, say, that particular story goes back 100,000 years. We don't know right now, currently. I'm posing that question in this book and in the next book, okay? Because why is it that all the other stories were edited? The Bible itself, from the time Jesus died, was written, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written between 100 and 400 years later. Those books have been edited, and all the books subsequently that are now considered the New Testament, including the Old Testament, which the Hebrews hate because it's not as accurate as their Bible. And so they say your Old Testament is not ours because you guys edited it. So they edited everything else since then, except that one story. Why has that story not been edited, but everything else has? You need to ask that question. That's more important than who wrote it first. Why has it never been edited? But all the other stories in the Bible, where it says in the Bible, if you change this Bible at all, God will detest you and you will go to hell, because it is against God's laws to edit this Bible. And it's been edited. Well, I'm sure the Jesus story has been edited too. No, because it reoccurs in other religions. The Egyptian religion, older than that, the Mesopotamian religion, right? Older than that, the Hindu religion, older than that, the Viking religion. It's all there. In other religions as well. You can look that up. Okay. Okay. Right. Hell, Joanne says, people live a life of hell. We'll see it as below, so above, right? As within, so without. This place is heaven and hell. There was a band who's still around that I didn't know they were still around called Accept. And there's only one founding member that's still in the band. And I just saw an interview with him yesterday. And I was like, that's not Accept. It's the band called Accept. That's not Accept. And then I realized, wait, that is Accept. And that, wow, there's nobody left in the band. Then I saw the guy that was the front man now, because he's the only original creator left in the band. I was like, oh my God, I remember when I was a kid. They've been a band for 50 years now. And I didn't realize they were that old, but that's like Judas Priest, right? Judas Priest came out of England. These guys were German, but he's been living in the United States for like 35 years now. And they had a song that in the song they say, it was the name of their album, and I think it was Heaven and Hell, but I know that was done by Ronnie James Dio or might have been Rainbow, or when he was with Black Sabbath. So I don't think it was called Heaven and Hell, but the song was about heaven and hell. And the chorus from the song, and we're talking 40 years ago, he said, heaven is never in heaven. Heaven is where hell is, and hell is down on earth. And the song was about that this place is both heaven and hell. It's what you make of it. It's what you see. Your focus determines your reality. So if you're living, getting back to what Joanne was saying, people live a life of hell because that's the life they've chosen. And if you're in service to self, your life is going to be hell unless you get ultra rich. But then it's going to still suck, because when you have enough money to where you can do all the things you wish you could do when you don't have any money, you do all that, then there's nothing left for you to do or look forward to. And then you just want more and more money because you want to have it all. And that's it, because then you can buy everything, and that becomes boring eventually. And then that's why they charge perversion and sex slaves and slavery and all of that, because they can amuse themselves now in a debauchery way with physicality. Right. And they can then come up and create new ways of torturing people, raping people, damaging people. And that's all they have left, truly, because they have enough money to do everything else. And so now it's boring. Things they wish they could do their entire life. That's why the saying, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. Because if you have no money and you're like, I wish I had $1 million, then I wouldn't have to worry about anything. Well, that becomes with its own worries. Right. And then you got to figure out how to spend that money to make money, but you also have to be able to keep the money. Otherwise they tax you to death. So that creates issues. Then you have to start spending money to make money to keep your money. And then when you're like, I'm going to buy this car, I'm going to buy this house, and then you start checking off your bucket list of all these things. And then eventually you've had the car now for 6 months, a year, 2 months. I want the newest one. And now you're buying a new one every time a new one comes out every year. And then you're getting in the car and it's the same car, it's just a different color with a couple of different gadgets. That becomes boring after a while. And then you're like, okay, I don't really care. I got every version of this car and it doesn't matter. I'm going to buy every car. And then eventually there's not going to be any cars for you to buy. And then what do you do? I'm going to buy another house. And then I'm going to buy a house over here. And then I'm going to buy a house in that country. And then in that country. And then you do all that. And then what? Do you see? And then I got to make more money so I can buy more houses. And then you make more money and you buy more houses. And the next thing you know, you're like, well, I got nothing. And then you're like, well, I'll buy every house there is on the whole planet and then make people pay me money. And then you start doing that. And then guess what? Now you have to pay taxes on all of that, the upkeep on all of that. That creates more problems. Then you start work and get people work for you. Next thing you know, you're bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're still realize, now I'm just spending all my time trying to balance all this stuff. So I'm going to hire other people to do it for me. So that way it gives me time to do what I want to do. Then you get back to, what do I want to do? I'm going to go fishing. Then that's boring. I'm going to take up playing guitar. Now I've perfected that. I'm going to learn a language. Now I've learned that. Because you have the money to do it full time, you're going to go into it full time and you're going to get through it faster than anybody else. And then you're not going to know what to do with yourself. And then you're going to start making stuff up. That's what happens to rich people. You can only conquer the world so much. Okay. So what's the alternative to that, Leo? Where is this going, Leo? What is this all about, Leo? Okay. You're supposed to turn inward and outward at the same time. And if you don't, this place becomes a hell. Same place that other people are living, and it's heaven to them. And it's beautiful, and the food is beautiful, and the air is beautiful, and the landscape is beautiful, and the people are beautiful, and everything I do is beautiful, and those people resent the people. How come I have $1 trillion and you have $1 in your damn bank account and you're happy and I'm in hell? How dare you? And then they start being mean to you because they're trying to stamp you out and make you feel like they feel. Misery loves company. What's the common denominator here? The common denominator here is their life is hollow. Their life is hell because what are they missing from their life? It's nothing that they're looking for physical, is it? Because everything physical has done nothing for them. Hence, 634 BCE, Lao Tzu said, or Lao Chi said, he who seeks it will not find it. He who grasps it will not, or he who gropes it will not grasp it. Okay? Because if you're looking for heaven in this physical place, you won't find it. So you end up thinking, I can buy. That's the whole song, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. That song was about a woman who was wanting to buy her way into heaven. And the more she accomplishes, the more she tries to buy her way into heaven, the more she realizes that her life is hell. That's what the song's about. You should listen to that song by those drugged out crazy hippies from the 1970s who were talking about Jacob's ladder and the ascension to heaven, and you can't buy your way into heaven. So the physical is not where the land of milk and honey is. So if you live in the physical, it becomes hell. And like Joanne was saying, that people live in a life of hell. Why? Because they're living in a physical place and they're living in the physical and not in the spiritual. Because they're living in the physical and they're looking for their pleasure and their heaven in a physical place, they'll never find it. And therefore you can't. And so no matter how hard you try, you're stuck here. This here gets redundant. It's all the same and it becomes your prison. It becomes your hell. Or you look within yourself and you look without yourself. You look in a spiritual way. And all the people living in a physical say you're an idiot. You're crazy. There's nothing there. You can't taste it. You can't smell it. You can't buy it. You can't live it. You can't. It's not real. It's made up. It's fake. And they believe that. And so therefore they're living in a hell. And all those people who don't believe that and look to a spiritual thing, they find that as they ascend, they get smarter. They also get calmer. They also start feeling this euphoric effect that weirdly that made up guy Jesus was telling us about in 13 lifetimes that make up the top 13 religions on the face of this earth from around the world in time, by the way. All the religions we have left on this earth have the same version of a guy who did exactly what this Hebrew named Jesus did. Weird. Wonder what they all have in common. Same message. And what was that message that Jesus was teaching? Well, that message that Jesus was teaching is, my kingdom is not of this earth. The message Jesus was teaching and the Jesus character throughout every religion named different names. Apophis in one religion, Thor in another religion. Wait, what? Okay. Ashtar in a religion that's becoming a religion. Ashtar doesn't like that. He doesn't like the fact that he's becoming a religious icon down here on earth. Wasn't his intention. He'll be a god and a savior in about 150 years on this earth if it keeps going the way it's going. So will Elvis Presley, by the way. Elvis Presley is closer to people are already dressing like him, acting like him, singing like him, walking like him, talking like him. They're not doing that with Ashtar yet. Ashtar's just an idea, but everybody's already starting to dress up like Jesus. Rick, what's up? Just popped in. Must be on a break. Lunchtime or something over there, right? Or dinner. Time is it over there? Lunchtime or a break. Welcome, Rick. So the common denominator from all of these prophets, not just the Jesus character, but all the other prophets, is the same. Looking within yourself. And while looking within, you also look without. Looking up. There's a reason when your third eye opens up the first time, it's facing straight up. You have to train your third eye to look around. Third eye is looking up. Why? Because it's looking in the direction that you're supposed to be looking in when you first open it. And you're supposed to realize that when it opens, it's looking up. Why? I want it to look around here. That's okay, but you have to take control of it. But it opens looking straight up. Okay? Unless you're born unveiled. And then you're already in control of it. But then you did that in the last lifetime, the one prior to this one. Right? Just like that. I think it was Rick. Was it Rick? Was it you that posted that video? I think it was Rick. In the Law of One chat of that little kid. That little kid's unveiled. That little kid is unveiled and completely awake. And you can see, I love the expressions on his face when he's talking. That says more than the words that are coming out of his mouth, or just as much, about his honesty and his some of the things he said. He says, like, why doesn't everybody know this? I remember when I was his age, I was doing the same thing. Why is it that not everybody knows this? Because for him, unless he realizes that he's that unveiled, which I think he does, he still is like, wow, why does not everybody know this already? This is something that everybody's supposed to know already, right? So, Rick, thank you for finding that. I haven't followed them, but I think I'm going to, because I think his mom talks to him like that all the time and asks him questions. And he just, as a matter of fact, telling stuff that was, people, when they listen to him, they're like, oh my God, this kid's a prophet. He's just awake. There are many of us out here who can answer the same questions the exact same way and do. But when I do it as a 50-something white male, people go, he's making that shit up. When a 9-year-old boy says it, they go, he's the Dalai Lama. No, he's actually smarter than the Dalai Lama, and he's more awake. Okay? I would guarantee you, if he sits down next to the Dalai Lama, people are going to start paying attention to what that boy is saying more than the Dalai Lama. I know that's going to be the case. Because when I was his age, that boy's age, I heard the Dalai Lama speak for the first time, and I went, and I listened to the Dalai Lama, and I went, raised an eyebrow like Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock. Raised an eyebrow and went, that man is not as awake as he's pretending or they think he is. Well, he's serving a purpose. Maybe he's just holding back. So I check back every few years to listen to what the Dalai Lama says. And I haven't changed my opinion. I would love to have a conversation with the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is an intelligent man, and he is awake. He is not unveiled. However, that little boy is more unveiled than the Dalai. I'll tell you right now, just from the 2 clips of 30 seconds that I saw of what that little boy was saying and watching him, his eyes and his mannerisms when he was talking, I'm like, he's awake. He is unveiled. He has come into this life unveiled, unless someone in his life is unveiled and they've taught him, jump through the hoop, little boy, say this and say that. I don't think so. I would love to have a conversation with that little boy, but Rick, thank you for posting that, because it's refreshing to see more people. When I was his age, there was nobody around me besides my father, and my father was not completely unveiled, and he knew it. And he was like, you got to stop saying these things out loud when people are around. They're not ready for you yet. You have to hold back until you don't have to hold back anymore. And right now, because at that time it was in the 1970s, you can't say these things out loud. They will take you from us. You will take you from me if you say these things. They'll think there's something wrong with you, and they'll put you in a crazy booby house, because what you're saying will make these people feel uncomfortable, and the government will want to study you and figure out what you know and see what they can turn into a weapon, son. So you need to not talk. First rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. I got that talking from my father, and he says, you'll understand this. The more you are exposed to this planet, you'll understand why I'm saying this. By the time I was 15 years old, I knew 100% that my father was trying to help me and protect me in a time when I was like, I just need to tell everybody what's going on. Why won't they just listen? They will if I just tell them. And he's like, no, they won't. They didn't listen to Jesus when he tried to tell them this stuff. What makes you think that 2,000 years later, they're going to listen to you? And I was like, because it's been 2,000 years. And he's like, don't go there, son. If you start telling people before they're ready to hear you, they're going to say you're crazy. People say I'm crazy now. And it's 45 years since I had that conversation with my father. Okay? 35 years since I was 15 and realized why. Okay? No, 45. So, and people think I'm crazy now. And the government is doing to me, trying to do to me exactly what he said. From the time I was 11, that was starting with the government. Not because I'm somebody special, not because I'm like a Jesus. I'm just awake. I'm just unveiled. All of you out there on the planet can achieve this. Every one of you. You're supposed to be trying to achieve this. Unless you're in service to self, then you don't care and you think I'm crazy and you need to shut me up because you can't keep control of the earth if there's people like me around. That's why I love that little boy came through. There's more people coming through. There's other people that I've seen as well that they're talking and I go, awake. Ooh, unveiled. The unveiled is rare, but the awake used to be as rare, and now it's becoming more and more commonplace. Thank the gods for that. All right, let's continue. So now Raw's talking about working with people when they were here in South America, and you'll see why this becomes important to everything that I'm saying to you right now. I'm not just blatherskiting on. You'll see as we go here when Raw starts talking about those people in South America who are no longer among the living, and some of their descendants are here, but most of the race of beings are gone off this earth now. Why? We'll get into that. Let's continue here.
There were not 2 tablets. There was one writing and scroll. This was placed along with the most carefully written accounts by various entities.
Okay, so we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Let me get right back on track. I apologize for that. The Ark of the Covenant, and there weren't 2 tablets the way everybody thinks. There was 2 big stones that were heavy. They were scrolls. And this is what Raw is saying. It was everything was on a scroll. It wasn't 2 big stone tablets. Originally, when he carved them, they were, but that's not. By the time he got mad, if you remember, Moses got mad and threw them down at people, and they broke. So they wrote it down. What Moses had said were on the tablets, and that was what went in the Ark of the Covenant. So let me back up a little bit here, a second or two here, and you'll hear Raw is talking about that.
The usefulness of the training aid becomes negative. 60.17 Questioner. Thank you. I don't know if this question will result in any usable direction, but I think I must ask it. What was the Ark of the Covenant, and what was its use? Ra, I am Ra. The Ark of the Covenant was that place wherein those things most holy, according to the...
Okay, I want to put this up on the screen, what Joanne said here. I was reading that. It's amazing how woke children awake. I know I'm saying woke, and I got to stop saying that because woke is what the crazy politicians think they are, and they're like, I'm woke. No, you're either awake, because if you're woke, that means you're brainwashed by the politicians, right? So I tried. That's like saying understand. You don't stand under anybody, so you should be understanding. Do you understand? Not do you understand? Do you understand is a command, aggressive command that is saying, do you stand under me? Do you submit to my will? That's what that means. So woke, we got to stop saying that and say awake, right? But I agree. It's amazing how awake children can be. My son, at the age of 10, told me to hold it and throw it away when I came home after a bad day of work at work, right? Yes, he was saying, hold on to it and I'll throw it away. Grab a hold of it and throw it away, right? Get rid of it. Yeah, let it go. Let it go. Right? Isn't that the song that was sung in Frozen? Let it go. Or shake it off. Like Taylor Swift says, shake it off. Right? It's the same concept. But children come through and they're not locked into this matrix. It is us who lock them into this matrix and everything else, cartoons, movies, and a school and everything. We lock them into this matrix and solidify their veiling. Some come through very unveiled or awake to where they're almost, they're piercing the veil. They can see through it, and they're discouraged quickly by people that are stuck in this place and veiled. And we drum that out of them. That's the design of this place. It's supposed to do that. Some of them resist, and they have to come in very awake to resist that, and have parents that allow them to resist or encourage that resistance to stop this matricy from veiling them fully. So if you have a parent such as yourself that doesn't discourage them from saying those things, they'll keep that part of themselves. But this place is designed to solidify you and lock you into. It's a trap of the mind on purpose. It's not a prison that you were put into by third dimensional beings of any kind who created you or created this as a dumping ground, which oddly, here's the weird thing, okay? The entire Ancient Aliens pantheon, from the History Channel's Ancient Aliens and all the people involved in it and all the people that are surrounding it now, their entire narrative is the narrative that's on that video that I linked into the chat of the Roswell interview of the alien that doesn't exist officially because the crash didn't officially exist by the federal government of the United States. But everything that you hear Giorgio Tsoukalos and everybody else talking about since 2012 is literally everything that is in that book that is on that video that I linked into the chat. And none of them since 2012 has ever gave credit to any of their ideology coming out of that book. Yet, it is that book that everyone quotes. Anunnaki, brainwashing, prison planet, people locking us here, and that this is an entire lie. Even the lie that she tells in there, that they tell you when you die, they capture you with the screens who zap you, and they tell you and program you that you're on a secret mission and you have to come back. Everything that you're told from the Ancient Aliens theorists around the world is verbatim, word for word, out of that book. And you never hear any of them claiming they read that book. You never hear mention of that book, of a Roswell incident, and Errol, nor Matilda, or anyone else. And the Ancient Aliens, History Channel Ancient Aliens television show started in 2012, and that book was published in 2008. And in the reality that I came from, it was published in 2012. And it is the reason why I claimed when I did it the first time, when I went through it the entire first time, I did 25 episodes, that the entire Ancient Aliens pantheon and all of the money that they've made off of that and all of the theories that everyone in that era is selling you today are based out of that book. Word for word. Word for word. People saying they have these screens up there that when you die, you get trapped, your soul gets trapped, and they zap you with electricity. That's exactly what Errol said in 1947. That came out in the book that was published in 2008. But none of them said, according to this book, according to this episode, according to this interview that supposedly didn't take place at Roswell, none of them say any of that. But they all say it. Watch every episode of the History Channels. And I'm friends with these people. I created Ancient Aliens Worldwide, the group on Facebook that is still there that has 300,000 members worldwide. And everybody from that show, I think, except for Childress, is in that group. And everyone who's ever spoke on that show is in that group, except for Copens, because he, in fact, died in 2017 of cancer. Okay, but Copens would have changed the face of he was the one that started the whole thing, him and Tsoukalos and Von Daniken. But he died of cancer, and because of that, they went down the road the way they did, and they're quoting that book without giving credit. They're plagiarizing right out of that book. If you listen to that video that I put in the chat, in the Law of One chat, it's 4 hours long. It'll take you a couple of days unless you can sit for 4 straight hours. You will hear, if you know anything about it, anybody preaching this Ancient Aliens theory around the world, you'll hear all of their theories from that book, from an interview from 1947 that was published in 2008. And they talk as if they know it, but they don't tell you how they know that information is being said. This is a prison planet, and there's aliens that are in charge of it. And every time you go to leave, don't go into the light, because the light is there to attract you like a moth to a flame, and it zaps you. That is exactly what Errol said. Word for word, what Errol said. But that's what the Ancient Aliens people tell you. There was a genetic enhancement, and their people created the human race through genetics. Errol said that. Though we're not quite sure that the human race was created through genetics, it's possible that the old guard created the human race because of the genome of the human race, because humans used to live for 1,000 years and something changed, and it would appear that the old guard changed something in your DNA so that people would die faster and resurrect more often so they could re-solidify the veiling process to keep you prisoners. That is verbatim. I just listened to her say that. I have total recall. I just listened to her say that 2 days ago. And you hear ancient aliens theorists tell you that exact same thing and just embellish the wording slightly so they're not saying it the way I just did. Okay? But none of them give credit to where they got that information from. Well, I got that from insiders. Who read that book? There would be a lot of insiders that would know that information, by the way, since it was the military-industrial complex and the CIA that were conducting the interview of Errol. So if they're getting this information from the deep state, that means that the interview actually happened. Because all of the information that's coming out through whistleblowers who were being told things, who were being told, even though they're hearsay, multiple times over, everything that they're claiming that someone told them on the inside is exactly what she's claiming. Oh, well, maybe that guy just made the whole thing up from all those stories. Oh, so the guy who made up the book, who printed the book, had all the same insiders that all these other people had and never told anybody about it? Okay, either way, I know without knowing that interview, that's why I did that interview, the same thing with the Law of One, before I ever read the Law of One. I was talking about things the way I called it, the way, not knowing that there was the Tao Te Ching, which means the way, the book of the way, not knowing that. And someone said to me, do you know that's from Lao Tzu said that in the way? And then I would say something else. And they're like, do you know that's in the Law of One? And I'm like, I've never read either one of those books. Well, the Law of One is 6 books, but Lao Tzu is 1 book. Lao Tzu, depends on how you pronounce it, whether it's Cantonese or Mandarin. And that's a different book. Well, I better read those. So then I read the Law of One and was like, I need to do this and talk about it. So I did it already once. And I did it from a low vibrational standpoint of just pushing into 4D. This time I'm pushing you up into 5D because people are ready for it now. Okay. So the tablets are not tablets. They're actually scrolls. And that's what Ra is talking about here. So let's continue with that.
Understanding of the one called Moishi were placed. The article placed therein has been called by your peoples 2 tablets called the 10 Commandments. There were not 2 tablets. There was 1 writing in scroll. This was placed along with the most carefully written accounts by various entities of their beliefs concerning the creation by the one creator. This ark was designed to constitute the place where from the priests, as you call those distorted towards the desire to serve their brothers, could draw their power and feel the presence of the one creator. However, it is to be noted that this entire arrangement was designed, not by the one known to the Confederation as Yahweh, but rather was designed by negative entities preferring this method of creating an elite called the Sons of Levi. 60.18 Questioner, was this a device for communication then? You said they also drew power from it. What type of power? How did this work? Ra, I am Ra. This was charged by means of the materials with which it was built being given an electromagnetic field. It became an object of power in this way and, to those whose faith became then untarnished by unrighteousness or separation, this power designed for negativity became positive and is so, to those truly in harmony with the experience of service, to this day.
Okay, note what was being said there, okay? That the materials that were used to create it gave it power, and it resonated power, though it was intended to be a negative power, has been changed into a positive power by those people who are venerating it. Okay? Do you understand that? I'm going to rewind that slightly and let you hear Ra say that again. Ask yourself, while that's happening, why did Ra just say that the way they did? Okay, let me back this up just a little bit more here. We'll play this again. Okay?
60.18 Questioner, was this a device for communication then? You said they also drew power from it. What type of power? How did this work? Ra, I am Ra. This was charged by means of the materials with which it was built being given an electromagnetic field. It became an object of power in this way, and, to those whose faith became that untarnished by unrighteousness or separation, this power designed for negativity became positive and is so, to those truly in harmony with the experience of service, to this day. Thus the negative forces were partially successful, but the positively oriented Moishi, as this entity was called,
Moses. It's just the older translation of it, Moishi. That's what you would know as Moses today. Both of those words mean river, by the way. That's why she called Moses Moishi. That's why she called him that, because it meant river, because she took him out of the Nile. He was floating down the Nile in a basket, which that story in and of itself, by the way, you should read the Colburn Bible, because the Colburn Bible talks about the Savior of the people coming in a basket going down the river. And then there was a story where that was similar to that. That comes out of Egypt, by the way, because the first books of the Colburn Bible from Scotland is scrolls that came out of Egypt with Moses during the Exodus. Moses didn't have them, but with that group of people that made its way to the Holy Land, and then the monks found it and took copies of them and took them back to Scotland. They added it to their Bible, which is now called the Colburn Bible, because of the similarities between those first 7 stories and the last 6 stories, which is theirs, where they have a Viking story that's very similar to where the person is a male who's supposed to go and kill the child, and the person decides not to kill the child and puts the child in a basket and puts the basket in the river, then kills the guys who are supposed to be there guarding him to make sure that he kills the child, and then escapes, and the child escapes, and then he eventually is caught and killed. They don't show you that part in the like the movie about Moses and why Moses ended up down the river and what was going on with that. I think they do in the movie, but if you read the story in the Talmud, you find out a little bit more of that. So it was very similar to the Viking story that was almost identical. So when they read it, they said, we need to add this to our story because this is almost identical to the same story. And it was the story of Moses, which was another version of the Savior character. And they had a Viking version of the same thing. I've read it, so I know what I'm talking about there. Okay, so originally the Ark of the Covenant was created, and the power that came off of it was a negative power that people were utilizing. So it had the potentiation to be positive or negative depending on what you saw and who you were. This is why in the Indiana Jones movie, when the Nazis got a hold of the Ark of the Covenant, when they opened it, he said to the woman who ended up becoming his wife later, close your eyes and don't look. Trust in me. But in the original version of the script was trust in God. Trust me what I'm saying. Trust God. Close your eyes. Don't look at it, Marion, and you'll survive. Those people who are greedy and evil, when they look at it, it will destroy them. And if you are not, it will not. That's the same as the lamb's blood painted door, the creeping death, where if you were not evil and you put the lamb's blood over your door, the creeping death would not kill you. God's wrath would not be upon you. The same thing happened with that. And what Ra's talking about here is that the power that the Ark of the Covenant has can be used by evil people for corruption, or by people that are in service to others and become a holy thing. That entire, just now with what Ra's talking about, is the same scenario that I've been talking about your focus determines your reality. The Ark of the Covenant destroys you if you are self-serving and evil, and it gives you long life if you are in service to others. And it propagates itself through the generations. It's the same concept, and Ra's talking about that right here in a very physical way, that it was corrupted by priests, but over time, it has then now become a positive thing. So all the negative energy that it possesses is still there as potentiation by anybody who finds that freaking Ark of the Covenant, and evil people are still looking for it. Just like other artifacts that they could use, the Nazis included, why I went back to the story of that, the Nazis included looking around the world for every ancient artifact. If they can get a hold of the Spear of Destiny, they can control the world. The Spear of Destiny will not make you evil if you are not evil, but then you have to be in service to others completely. Otherwise, you'll succumb to the evilness of and the draw of the power. That's where you get the story of and the idea of ultimate power corrupts ultimately. Well, it only corrupts people who are in service to self. People who are in service to others will not be corrupted no matter what, because they have that innate ability about them. It's an ability that was described, by the way, in some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, that the human race was created with an incorruptible ability. But that doesn't mean that every single human was created with that incorruptible ability. And what is the incorruptible ability? The ability to create. And it only becomes incorruptible when you are creating out of love for the betterment of all, because you're in service to all. You're in service to everyone else. In service to self, people will be corrupted by the power. This is what Ra is talking about. It's the same lesson that is this place. Your focus determines your reality. If you're looking for power and corruption, you can take power and corruption, but ultimately it leads to your doom. If you're not, you can have the responsibility to not take that power. The entire story of the One Ring in Lord of the Rings is the exact same scenario being played out. The One Ring to rule them all. People who are corruptible and self-serving would say, I want that one ring to use it against evil, and it will corrupt you and corrupt your mind and eventually turn you evil. The same thing happened when you went forward in the movies, which went backwards in time, and you saw prior to the One Ring being found by Frodo, the Arkenstone did the same thing and corrupted him and his father and his grandfather before him, talking about Oakenshield. And it still corrupted him, but it caused him to die. He ended up dying because of it, because he went crazy and he wouldn't share his wealth with anybody. If you guys saw all the movies or read all the books, you know what I'm talking about. And eventually he dies when he goes to confront the evil he thinks he's trying to defeat, but it's defeating him. And then he dies as well in the end. And people who read the books were like, why did he have to die? Because he had become corrupted. It's the law of the realm. He became corrupted, and by his corruption, he was seeking revenge instead of helping the people. He could have defeated that person, but instead he took his troops to go after him, to go and kill him personally. And that was the corruption that had gotten him to run off, and he ended up dying and caused a couple of his buddies to die with him by doing it. They weren't corrupt, but they were trying to protect him because they loved him, and they ended up dying as well, trying to help him to kill that one orc that died as well. They both died. In the end, I remember seeing the movie with my wife. She started crying. She says, "You didn't tell me they all die." She said that in the movie theater while she was crying. "You didn't tell me they all died." And I was like, "I'll explain it to you after the movie. Shh, watch the movie." So I explained to her what had happened and what that meant. And that's what Aragorn was worried about, that he was going to fall into that same category. And his wife told him, "No, you're not those people. You're in service to others." She didn't say those words in the book. You're in service to others. You're not, just because you're of their bloodline doesn't mean that you're going to be corrupted the way they were. So it was the same story being taught to you by Tolkien in all of those books, if you ever read those. Okay. So this is what Ra's talking about here, even though Ra's not going to go into those details. Watch.
Gave to your planetary peoples the possibility of a path to the one infinite creator.
Yes, Denise said, like King Midas. Yes. Okay, let's continue.
Which is completely positive. This is in common with each of your orthodox religious systems, which have all become somewhat mixed in orientation, yet offer a pure path to the one creator which is seen by the pure seeker. 60.19 Questioner, where is the Ark of the Covenant now? Where is it located? Ra, I am Ra. We refrain from answering this query due to the fact that it does still exist and is not that which we would infringe upon your peoples by locating. 60.20 Questioner, thank you.
If the location of the Ark of the Covenant were told right now, there would be a race by every government on the face of the earth to go and get it, so that they would have the religious and physical power and prowess that it would give them and control over the masses. And they would obliterate the entire planet, killing each other off to get control of it. And then anybody who got control of it would immediately kill everybody else that was not yield to their power. That was what the One Ring was in representation. A lot of people in the physical say that Tolkien's book was about the discovery of the hydrogen bomb and the nuclear bomb, and that the nuclear bomb became the same. It has. Today, they're discussing whether or not to attack Iran and bomb their nuclear facilities because they don't want the Iranians getting control of a nuclear weapon, because they don't believe that they would not use it to start a war. But who's to say that the people that are in charge right now aren't doing the same thing, right? The threat of "I will nuke you if you don't do what I tell you to do" has made world powers out of Russia and the United States and China. Okay, so is it fair to have everybody having the nuclear weapons, or would we all blow ourselves into space? Would we be what that song from was, that Iron Butterfly that sang that song, right? Fire all of our guns at once and explode into space, right? So literally you have to have people who have control of their faculties enough to know that nobody wins in that. And that's why they were all rendered inert in 1994, although most of you on the planet don't know that that's what happened. And it's just been recently, since 2015, 2016, that's why you never heard about anybody talking about nuclear weapons until about 2 years ago, because nobody had them anymore, and they were pretending that they still did. Everybody on the planet, all the politicians knew, but they weren't telling the other guys, hoping that we just have to make them think that we have bullets in our guns till we can recreate new ones and then put them in there without anybody knowing about it. But they were rendered inert on the entire planet. By us, by the way. By the coalitions. Not physically. Well, physically, but not by those of us down here in human form. Okay? And that was done on purpose, because they were going to start the nuclear war and blow everybody up. It's coming to a time when that's going to happen once again, because they're getting close to that, right? But for some people, it's going to end up being a reality that some of us may have to live through if things don't change enough. Unfortunately, right? You have a certain amount of time of enough people doing intervention to stop it, or it will happen. Nostradamus talked about that when he said, these events don't have to happen. Everybody forgets that he said that, and says, well, his predictions didn't come true, because he said, hopefully, if you pay attention to what I'm doing, what I'm saying to you, you can avert these from happening. His entire idea for giving you those were putting them in a code so that they would make it out of his generation into ours, same way Jesus wrote Revelations in a code that would make it out of his generation into ours. So the people in the future could translate them and say, look out, we don't want that bad shit to happen. All we have to do is not know it. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So if you know of its existence and decide we don't want that to happen, you stop it from happening. That's what all of the predictions from everybody throughout all of time is trying to do. They're not predicting doom and saying you can't stop this. No one has been listened to who has said this is going to happen and you can't stop it. It's going to happen on this date. All the people who say that date comes and goes and it doesn't happen, and they go, yeah. Well, that's because I meant tomorrow. Well, but it was next year on that date, and then next year on that date, and they just keep moving the goalpost. Those are the ones that you know are fake, because they're telling you it's going to happen at a certain time, and then when you get there, it doesn't. Well, Nostradamus said that. No, I actually read the actual translations of the real predictions of Nostradamus, which the governments know about because I read it when I was 16 years old, 15 years old. And you can't find that book anywhere on this planet anymore. But it was for sale, and you could have it mailed to your house. My buddy did, and I read it, and he read it, and we lent it to a buddy of ours. He read it, and then he lent it to a buddy, and then we never saw the book again. And you can't find it on this earth now. I'm sure it's there somewhere. I'm sure it's on somebody's bookshelf somewhere, and eventually someone's going to die of old age, and someone's going to be going through their books, and they're going to go, what's this? And they're going to throw out most of the copies, but one person is going to go, what's this? start flipping through the pages, and then they're going to go, oh my God, did anyone know this? And that is going to go on until they get it out to the world. If they're smart, they'll immediately copy that and paste it to the world before the governments find out and come over and take it from them. Right? Weirdly, the governments who are trying to make that actually happen, you would think they would want that information out to the world. But again, when people know about a thing, they can stop a thing unless they don't have any control over it. So there might be people in the government like myself that are trying not to let anybody know about it because they don't want it to happen. So the fact that it's still not out on the market for everybody to know tells you there's more people on this earth that don't want that scenario to happen. That's why it's not being published for the world to read currently. So they say that that's why the reason why the Dead Sea Scrolls, except for when you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's nothing in there other than the ascension and how to not be trapped in this matrix anymore. That's what's in all the Dead Sea Scrolls. All of them. Why were they removed? Because they actually understood them back then. So all the same messages that have been hidden back then are the ones that are still in the Bibles now. Because people back then, when they were going through them, didn't realize they were there. That's why they were written the way they were written, to where you won't understand this now, but people in the future, and way a long time in the future, will understand what this means. So you write this down and then eat this, and it will be locked up inside, and you will not understand what it is that is being said, but people in the future will understand this. That time is now, and that time is happening. But the ones that were blatantly for the people back then to know about, those all got pulled out. That's why the other ones were put in. Okay, so he's talking about the Ark of the Covenant, and we'll see if he gets back to talking about the people in South America. If not, we'll do that at another time, but let's continue with the Ark of the Covenant. So knowing where it is at now, if I knew where it was, I would never tell anybody that I know where it is, nor would I tell them where to go and look for it, because that in my scenario that I just told you would happen. It would be the end of the world, because every evil person on this planet would be racing to get control of it as fast as they could. It needs to stay hidden until the society is back in charge of that 14% that are evil and will not allow them to do it. And then somebody gets a hold of it and everybody else is knowing about it, and then it gets locked away. That's why at the end of Indiana Jones, everything was put into crates and then stuck into some warehouse that was a giant warehouse of crates that you would never know that it existed. And that's the best place for it, is locked up somewhere where nobody will ever find it. The Knights Templar did that with most of the information.
In trying to understand the energies, creative energies, it has occurred to me that I really do not understand why unusable heat is generated as our Earth moves from third into fourth density. I know it has to do with disharmony between the vibrations of third and fourth density, but why this would show up as a physical heating within the Earth is beyond me. Can you enlighten me on that? Ra, I am Ra. The concepts are somewhat difficult to penetrate in your language. However, we shall attempt to speak to the subject. If an entity is not in harmony with its circumstances, it feels a burning within. The temperature of the physical vehicle does not yet rise, only the heat of the temper or the tears, as we may describe this disharmony. However, if an entity persists for a long period of your space/time in feeling this emotive heat and disharmony, the entire body complex will begin to resonate to this disharmony, and the disharmony will then show up as the cancer or other degenerative distortion from what you call health.
Okay, so you hear people saying this now, right? You hear people holistically talking about this now. Don't think negative thoughts about yourself, because as you negative thoughts propagate negative thoughts. Yoda said, don't start down the dark path, because forever it will dominate your destiny. If you start with negative thoughts about yourself, they propagate more negative thoughts about yourself, and you start thinking more negative things. So if you think positive thoughts about yourself, the same thing happens. Okay? Negative people and people that are in service to self have a higher rate of dying of diseases and cancers than people who are in service to others. They don't want you knowing about that, because they're trying to get everybody to be in service to self. Why? For the same reason that Errol talked about, they want your life expectancy to be less. They want the propagation of violence against people and self-serving, because then you recycle faster. You either kill each other off, or you end up dying of diseases. low energy food, processed food, getting you then sick and never curing that, not telling you why you're sick, but giving you medicine that is going to mask your symptoms like a Band-Aid, but you're not healing so that you don't know you have the sickness. And then you keep taking that medicine, which causes other problems. So you have to take other medicines for. They want you smoking cigarettes so that way you get some sort of cancer. If not, then the capillaries in your blood vessels shrink down to hardly anything and you'll end up with a good heart attack or a stroke. If that doesn't happen, all the food that you're eating with all the processed crap is going to put so much shit into your arteries that's going to constrict and your blood pressure is going to go up. And oh, by the way, you're smoking cigarettes, so your blood pressure is going to go up, and you're doing drugs and you're doing medication, which is creating all of these problems in your body so that you're going to die earlier, die younger, and die from diseases. And then as you're dying, you're going to do everything you can do at that point to try and save your own life. But yet you're not going to give up all the same shit that you were already doing that caused the problem. Why? Because you don't know that all that shit caused the problem, because they're not telling you that that's what caused it. Okay. And so people keep smoking until they die of whatever disease. They keep drinking because they're doing drugs. The 5 largest reasons for the most deaths on this earth can be prevented. The top 5. Sorry, I had a gnat or something fly into my ear. The top 5 reasons people die: heart attack, cancer, and that's all caused by cigarettes and things from cigarettes, processed food, problems from smoking, problems from processed food, and problems from alcohol and drugs. Top 5 reasons people die on this earth. All 5 of those things are because of smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, eating processed food, doing drugs. Period. Top 5. All of those can be eliminated from your life, and all of those things which are those are just the top 5 most common reasons. Okay, so let's talk about how many people die from that in the United States. And this is in 2016 numbers, because I haven't looked them up lately, but I did in 2016 because I posted it online. In 2016, the amount of people that were dying from heart attacks, heart disease, and heart attacks was the number 1 killer of Americans. Okay. So there's somewhere on the order of 3 million humans in the United States alone that die from heart attack, heart disease, stroke, all because of smoking cigarettes, and cancer. Cancer itself is killing another 5 million people a year. Alcohol and alcohol-related illnesses is killing another 5 million people a year. Combine all of those things together, and you have the next 50 causes of death in the United States. And if you throw in drugs, you have the next 25 after that. So out of the top 100 reasons for people dying in the United States, if you quit smoking cigarettes, quit drinking alcohol, quit doing drugs, you would more than likely not die, and stop eating processed food. You would more than likely drop down on the list to below 100, the top 100. You would take that top 100 reasons to die in the United States off the table, and that kills 80% of all Americans every single year. 80% of the deaths in the United States per year are because of processed food, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, and the drugs from pharmaceutical companies causes all of those deaths. So we're looking at somewhere on the order of 20 million people dying per year from those. How many people die from the guns that they're trying to take off of the market in the United States per year? 18,000 on average. How many people die from committing suicide in the United States every year? 63,000. How many people die in car accidents around the United States every year? 66,000. How many people die of a heart attack in America? 2.5 million. How many people die of cancer? 5 million. How many people die of alcohol-related illnesses? 5 million. But we're trying to ban guns because they're killing too many people. Cigarettes are killing 2.5 million people. Alcohol's killing 5 million. Processed foods killing 5.5 million. But we're not trying to ban any of those. Why? Because the pharmaceutical company and the hospitals in the United States are the biggest profits. Those two industries make up almost $1 trillion each in the United States. And those two industries are the ones that all of those people who die are going to for help. So why would they try to change the narrative of what you're doing to yourself around the world when they're making all of their money off of all of you dying and having health problems? When if they changed all those things, they wouldn't make any money. So why would they change those things? Matter of fact, most of the people who own pharmaceutical companies are the same people who own the processed food companies. And the processed food companies are owned by the people who manufacture cigarettes. You should look into it. Oh, and they also own the alcohol industry. So the very people who own the hospitals are the same people who own the pharmaceutical companies, who are the same people who are feeding you the garbage food and the cigarettes and the alcohol that are killing you. And then as you're dying, you're going to the hospital that they own, getting prescribed drugs that they own, and then going home and stopping at a store and buying their processed food, their cigarettes, and their alcohol to go home and take their drugs and the advice of their doctor, which is take their drugs, and then you're drinking their alcohol, eating their food, and smoking their cigarettes while you're getting worse. Look it up. I'm not making any of that up. That's worldwide. You should pay attention to that. Okay, so getting back to the Ark of the Covenant, right? So your focus determines your reality. You determine where it is that you are going to go in this life. And this is what Ra is talking about. If you choose to eat of the tree of life all of your life, you're going to die young. If you choose to treat the tree of life like it's holy, take care of it, you're going to live long. The potentiation in the physical becomes the potentiation for the spiritual. And this is what Ra's talking about. So when I talk about things in a mundane respect and people pop in, they're like, he's talking politics. It has nothing to do with the law of one. Did you read the law of one at all? It's the same thing when I talk about that and people go, what does that have to do with spirituality? It has nothing to do with spirituality, pal. That's politics, and we want a separation of church and state. Those are just two religions. The religion of evil, politics, and the religion of good, church. That's it. That's the difference. One is run by the same evil people who are selling you this reality so that you die young. The other one is owned by the same people who are selling you the reality of infinity and the ascension. You need to realize that, not knowing that and pretending that there's separation and that there's nothing to do with anything at all. And none of this has anything to do with the law of one, pal. Tells me that you've never read the law of one. And if you did, you didn't understand it. And that's why I'm here trying to help you to understand it. I'm not making any of this up. Ask that little 9-year-old boy who's awake about the law of one and about what's going on in the world. I haven't watched their videos yet to find out. I'm going to do that after the show tonight when I'm sitting around, or tonight when I'm getting ready for bed after I put mom to bed. When I find you the episode where he starts talking about politics, I'll post it for you, because I'll bet you you're going to hear him say a lot of the same things that I'm saying right now. Okay? So, can you mute your mic a little bit? Is my mic too loud? I'm yelling. So I apologize if my microphone's too loud, Max said. Max Headroom, by the way. Love Max Headroom. You must be in your 50s to even know who Max Headroom is. I love that. Kudos to you, Max Headroom. I think what you're saying is, because you're probably hearing the television in the background, I can't change that. I take care of my mother, who's 80, who's in the other room watching television, and she's partially deaf. So the television has to be loud enough for her to hear it. I can't go in the other room and close the door because she has dementia, and I have to be able to see her to be able to take care of her so that she doesn't fall down, because and also to know whether or not she needs to take a shower, because she doesn't get up to go to the bathroom anymore. She goes in her diaper. So if it's the background thing, then I apologize, Max. If it's me being loud, that's crazy. Turn your sound down a little bit. You probably have me in earbuds, and that's loud. Because if I would have put on I'm using a GoPro. If I were to put it on the microphone here, everybody says it's too low. I can switch it to that if you like. Because if it is too loud for you, I can do that right now and switch it to the other microphone, and it will come in lower. So here, let me do that. I'll switch the audio right now to the microphone array instead of being from the computer to here, but then you'll see how much lower it is, okay? Here, let me do that right. Okay, so now can you hear me with that microphone? Is that any lower? Max, is that lower? Let me know. I know there's like a 30-second delay. I'll leave it on this, but it's a little more tinny, right? So it has a little more treble to it. Yeah, Max is on MTV. Max Headroom is on MTV, right? So yeah, or on YouTube, right? MTV. Max Headroom was from MTV. Yes, Max Headroom was the first computer guy that they created. It was an actor that was playing the part. I don't remember his name, but yeah, I loved that. Yeah, he was on MTV, and he was a character that basically was supposed to be a sentient guy who got loose in the computer system, and he was called Max Headroom, and he ended up taking over the computer around the world, but not for nefarious reasons. He wore sunglasses all the time, and he had blonde hair. He was like a cartoon character. He was a construct in the computer, and he wasn't evil, but he was funny, and he was glitchy, right? I love that. So Max, I love that you're on that, right? Did you ever see him put his plastic makeup on? You mean the actor that was playing it? No, but I'll bet you that was fun looking. He was very funny. The comedian, the actor. He was in a couple of movies, and most people didn't know that was even Max Headroom, the guy who played him. But he had all the hair. He had a head helmet on, and he had makeup on and prosthetics on his face to become the Max Headroom character with sunglasses. But he did go live for people and show up on stage to play himself, and people didn't realize that was the guy who was actually playing him that you saw on MTV, and with the makeup on. So that's kind of cool. So hopefully, Max, this is, I don't know how the rest of you the sound for the rest of you guys, but Max was saying that it was a little loud, so I did change it to the other audio. So hopefully you guys can still hear me okay. Let me know if you guys are still able to hear me here, and we'll continue. So I apologize if it was too loud, Max, for you. I apologize for that. And like I said, I switched it over, so now it's coming from that camera instead of my computer, the microphone. Okay, so let's get back to Roz talking about the Ark of the Covenant and not being able to give you the information for obvious reasons that this world is not ready for that Ark and the power that it would give any governmental system. So it won't be given out to the world ever. In fact, if I knew where it was, thank you, Penny. If I knew where it was, I would destroy it if I could, just so that it would be out of the way for the world to ever get a hold of. I mean, that would be up to me. And obviously that's why I don't get to know where it is. I actually kind of have an idea of where it is, but I'm not going to talk about that either. Okay. And I'm not going to, it's just like the 13th crystal skull. Everyone's like, we need to get them all united so that we can get the secrets of and that's why the Indiana Jones, they made a what if you got all the skulls together, and what they did was showed you that there was actually this alien council that really weren't aliens. They were a society that lived 77,000 years ago, who disappeared, and they had a knowledge in there and information that you could only unlock if you were in service to others. Oddly. All right, let's continue. Oh, and the reason that no one will ever find the 13th crystal skull is because it's yours. Okay? There are 12 crystal skulls that are already found, and they're all supposed to teach you that you are the 13th skull. And when you balance your ascension, the knowledge that all of those unlock is the universal knowledge that everyone can unlock, but you have to be in service to others. And only people that are in service to others can unlock that and become unveiled. And 100% of those people will not use it for nefarious reasons, because otherwise they lose the information and never get it. That's the secret to the crystal skulls. But those people who are looking for a physical skull to reunite all of them to get the secret information out of there will say, I'm making that up. Same thing with the Fountain of Youth. There's a place, I just got to go find it, and I can dip my cup underneath it, and I can drink it and have immortality. Nope. Keep looking. You'll never find it. But I can tell you how to find that cup that you can drink out of to give yourself immortality. You just don't get it with this physical body. It's in this physical body, but your immortality isn't the physical plane. Just telling you. That's the secrets to the universe. Okay, let's continue.
The planetary system of peoples and cultures repeatedly experiences disharmony on a great scale. The earth under the feet of these entities shall begin to resonate with this disharmony. Due to the nature of the physical vehicle, disharmony shows up as a blockage of growth or an uncontrolled growth, since the primary function of a mind/body/spirit complex is...
How does raw sound when I have it on that microphone? Is that, it's lower as well, isn't it? I just played raw. Were you guys able to hear it? I should have done another sound check. And then Max never answered. So I don't know if the microphone is helping. I guess I could go back to the other one, because Max never said, yeah, it sounds better with your microphone on that microphone. So if Max left, there's no reason for me to stay on that microphone, right? All right, let's continue.
Bodily complex is growth and maintenance. In the case of your planet, the purpose of the planet is the maintenance of orbit and the proper location or orientation with regards to other cosmic influences. In order to have this occurring properly, the interior of your sphere is hot in your physical terms. Thus, instead of uncontrolled growth, you begin to experience uncontrolled heat and its expansive consequences. 60.21 Questioner: is the Earth solid all the way through from one side to the other? Ra: I am Ra. You may say that your sphere is of an honeycomb nature. The center is, however, solid, if you would so call that which is molten. 60.22 Questioner: and the
honeycomb nature, right? But it is molten at the core. But the rest of the planet is a honeycomb nature. Let's continue with that. Oops, sorry.
Nature are there third density incarnate entities living in the honeycombed areas. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This was at one time correct. This is not correct at this present space/time. 60.23 Questioner: and there are there any inner civilizations or entities living in these areas that are some of the other than physically incarnate who do come and materialize on the Earth's surface at times? Ra: I am Ra. As we have noted, there are some which do as you say. Further, there are some inner plane entities of this planet which prefer to do some materialization into third density visible in these areas. There are also bases, shall we say, in these areas of those from elsewhere, both positive and negative. There are abandoned cities. 60 point.
Right, so you see right there, Ross said, well, no, there's nobody living in the Earth currently. Then said, well, there are those who live in the Earth currently who manifest in a third dimensional way that you see on the planet. So what people don't realize is that the hollow earth theory, they're like, well, there's people living in there. Well, yes, there are, but they're not actually third dimension unless they need to materialize that into that for you to see them. So when you go there, you see them, they're fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional, some 6 and 7 and 8 that are living in these areas in the internal earth. So there's no actual third dimensional races of people, even though, like when Admiral Byrd went into South America and North America, into the South Pole and the North Pole, they were able to find these people that were living there. It's because those people wanted them to find them there. So they manifested in a third dimensional way, but it wasn't done in the third dimensional illusion that you think of. Okay? They went from being in this third dimension into the fourth dimension, and they were manifesting in a third dimensional way for them to see them, but they were not currently still in this dimension. Hopefully you're following that. Okay, so if you go there to try and find them, if they don't want you to find them, you're not going to find them. But you will find these places inside the earth. Okay, but if they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. You'll be walking around; they're out of phase with you. You won't see anything. There's nothing in there. Nothing, just a bunch of caves. Nothing to see here. But they're there. But they're out of phase because they're in a different reality. We're all starting to talk about that. Let's continue here.
2-4 questioner. What are these bases used for by those from elsewhere? Ra. I am Ra. These bases are used for the work of materialization of needed equipment for communication with third density.
Right, and that's where Peter's talking about the frequency of the crystal skulls. Right, there is the power to control the people's minds, so the frequency and the power of all of everybody's minds. So truly, that's why this is what I was talking about. Where if you're in service to self, you're never going to decipher the crystal skulls because you can't, because you would take that information and use that, like Peter is saying, to control everybody's mind. Therefore, you're not given that information. The same thing with people who are unveiled. Only people who are unveiled get to have that knowledge of being unveiled because they're of the ascension, because they're in service to everyone, to the all. Can't fake out the universe. Can't pretend. No, I'm gonna pretend that I'm in service to all, but secretly I'm in service to self, and I'm gonna get that information so that I could use that power. You're only gonna gain the information that is possible for a person in service to self to gain. So you're only fooling yourself into thinking you're fooling the universe. You're never going to find out the actual secrets to the universe because you don't get to know that information, because it's beyond your grasp. You will never get to know it until you actually repent your ways and become in service to others. And you can't fake the universe out. The universe created this place, created you. God cannot be fooled. So you can't go, oh, no, really, I really am in service to others. Cross my fingers when nobody can see. The universe knows the difference. You will not ever gain that information. That is why they claim that it's all fake, that it's made up, because they can't see it and they never will have it. And that means they can't control it. And that means they can't charge you for it. Therefore, they can't have you looking for it or finding it. They have to keep telling you it's here somewhere. I just have to keep looking for it. It's here. We just got to dig it up. It's here. It's here because this is all there is. There is no other place. There's none of that. It's made up. It's fake. Because they can't believe that it's bigger than them, better than them, or that it's not them. Because they're self-serving. They believe this entire endeavor is created because of them. Then they die. And because they're dead, they're not still here for you to go, look, you died and it's still here. But we outlive them. Because there have been evil people on this earth for forever. And they're not here anymore, but we're still here and there's history. Where's that evil person? Well, they're not here for you to go, ha, got ya. So they think they're right. And then they die and find out they're not. And then they come back and they go, fuck that, I'm going to come back as evil again. And they come in and they're completely veiled, don't care. And then they start over again and they start trying to be evil. And then they're right back to doing what they were trying to do. And it works for one lifetime, then they're gone. Well, I'll leave it to my kids, and I'll come back as one of my kids. And a buddy of mine who's satanic, and he believes that when he dies, he's not going to go into the light, and he's going to possess somebody's body. He's going to come back, and he's going to take over, push somebody out, and he's going to live forever, and he's going to live in that person. So I'm like, well, then that means that you have an immortal soul. You realize that, right? So how did you get that immortal soul then? Where'd that come from? Never mind that now. There was no God. So you created yourself. So you're saying you're the God? And you can't keep this body alive? So if you've created all this and it's all created for you, how come you die then and have to possess someone else's soul? Now you're relying back on that fool of a religion of yours that counts on there's immortality. Where'd that come from? That concept came from people saying God created this place. So you have to admit that there's a God then. No, I'm God. Well, then why did you create so that your body would die? Now they're going to make up a story in their head and try to tell you the story. Well, sometimes get tired of the same body. Well, if you created it, why don't you just change right now in front of me? This is all yours. You're the God creator of the universe. Become a woman. Naked one too, so I can see that naked ass body. Big boobies. Look, you're not doing it, so that means you're not God. Well, you can't do it either. I didn't claim I'm God, did I? I didn't claim I could do that. You did. You said you created all this, and when you die, it's all going to disappear. If that's the case, you shouldn't be aging. Everyone else should, because you're forever. But you're aging too. Why are you not? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that if you stayed young, everyone would notice that? And then what? Kill you? Well, you created everything. You should be in charge of the entire planet right now because you're God in your mind and you created everything so nobody can harm you. So why are you not in charge? Why is there somebody above you who's in charge? Maybe I'm already in charge. No, you're not, because you drive a piece of shit Firefox Ford that was created 25 years before you were fucking born. Okay, maybe I just want to do that. Shut up. You had to borrow $20 from me last week. You got no money. You got dick. You're not who you think you are. This place wasn't created for you because you're poorer than I am. And I don't think I own all this. Okay, so you don't. You're just trying to pretend to yourself that you do and say how superior you are to me when you have nothing more than I have too on the same plane you have. I have whatever I get here. So do you. That makes us equal. No, I'm far superior. Are you? How come you're not in charge then? What's your idea for fooling the other? Must be other people that are more in charge than you, more evil than you, because otherwise you'd be the president of the world and you're not. They don't like it when they fuck you. That's usually what you get out of them. All right, let's continue. Right? Right? Okay. So let's continue. Let's continue here, okay?
The entities and for resting places for some equipment which you might call small craft. These are used for surveillance when it is requested by entities. Thus some of the, shall we say, teachers of the Confederation speak partially through these surveillance instruments along computerized lines, and when information is desired and those requesting it are of the proper vibratory level, the Confederation entity itself will then speak. 60.25 Questioner. Am I to understand then that the Confederation entity needs communication equipment and craft to communicate with the third density incarnate entity requesting the information?
See, that's a good question. Now, remember when he's talking about the Confederation, he's talking about the Orion Crusaders. Okay? That's a great question. Let's continue and hear what Ra has to say about that.
Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. However, many of your peoples request the same basic information in enormous repetition, and for a social memory complex to speak ad infinitum about the need to meditate is a waste of the considerable abilities of such social memory complexes. Thus some entities have had approved by the Council of Saturn the placement and maintenance of these message givers for those whose needs are simple, thus reserving the abilities of the Confederation members for those already meditating and absorbing information which are then ready for additional information. 60.26 Questioner. There has been, for the past 30 years, a lot of information and a lot of confusion, and in fact, I would say the lot of confusion has been Chuckle working overtime, to make a small joke, in bringing information for spiritual catalysis to groups requesting it, and we know that both the positively and the negatively oriented social memory complexes have been adding to this information as they can. This has led to somewhat of a condition of apathy in a lot of cases with respect to the information by many who are truly seeking but have been thwarted by a condition of what I might call spiritual entropy in this information. Can you comment on this and the mechanisms of alleviating these problems? Ra, I am Ra. We can comment on this. 60.27 Questioner. Only if you deem it to be of importance I would request a comment. If you feel it unimportant we'll skip it. Ra, I am Ra. This information is significant to some degree as it bears upon our own mission at this time. We of the Confederation are at the call of those upon your planet. If the call, though sincere, is fairly low in consciousness of the...
Sorry, I stand corrected. When he was talking about the Confederation, he's not talking about he's talking about the coalition. I apologize. I thought he was referring to the Confederation, because sometimes he does, as the Orion Crusaders. And I thought, wasn't that odd? Okay, so I'm sorry. He's talking about the coalition when he says the Confederation. So I apologize for that. And I was like, that sounded odd. I'm glad that he clarified. He said it, and that way I can clarify that I was mistaken in what I was saying there. But let's continue. So literally what Dawn's asking here is that there's a lot of confusion going on, and he sees that spiritual practices from the churches are not exactly on point, and that there's a lot of what he calls entropy happening from the churches as they're in decline. And this was 40 years ago. It's gotten worse. It's still the same way. You have to know where to look, but let's continue.
Shall we say, system whereby spiritual evolution may be precipitated, then we may only offer that information useful to that particular caller. This is the basic difficulty. Entities receive the basic information about the original thought and the means, that is meditation and service to others, whereby this original thought may be obtained. Please note that as Confederation members we are speaking for positively oriented entities. We believe the Orion group has precisely the same difficulty. Once this basic information is received, it is not put into practice in the heart and in the life experience, but instead rattles about with.
Okay, let me change that back. Thank you, Joanne, for letting me know that Max is gone. Max is gone. Switch it back, please, Leo. Okay, hold on. Let me fix the audio here. I'll put the audio back to where it was. Hold on here. There we go. How's that? Is that a little bit louder? Okay, so literally Ra was everything that I just said prior to getting up to this point. Ra was saying your focus determines your reality. If you're in service to self, you don't get to know this knowledge. You only get to know this knowledge if you're in service to others. Okay, so literally Ra just said that, and then Ra said the same issue is happening on the other side. People who are negative also have the same problem with people understanding them, because the confusion is causing confusion on both sides. So in an attempt to stifle people on the positive side from learning the ascension, evil is also stifling people from learning the evil side, but that's what they're doing on purpose. Why? Because then they are the only ones who have an advantage over all other evil people as well. So they don't gain enough information to overthrow them. So this is keeping the status quo. So the 1% who are putting themselves into a position of owning everything, controlling everything, are keeping everything exactly the way it is. So that no one can become evil enough to take them on. Nobody can become successful enough to buy them out, to own more of the companies than they do. So they keep status quo exactly the way it is. This is what they've been doing here. It's the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders. This is literally what they're doing. So you need to understand that when you guys think I'm talking about politics, when I'm telling you what's going on, Ra, and I'm going to remind it real quick right here, and we're going to let Ra say it again. So the confusion that's happening is happening on both sides. Why would the people that were evil care if that happens? They wanted to, that's why. Because if they were trying to get more people to become evil and ascend on the evil way, they would want to keep that path and just keep murdering the good people and keep other people turning evil and getting more and more and more and more evil. They don't want that, because when you get more and more and more evil and you have more and more power, you start looking at them and go, I want what they have and I want their power. And you start figuring out ways of cacking them off, taking them over, going after their corporations, hostilely taking them over. They can't have that happen. That's why, because they know that when you die, if you're Rasputin, the most evil person, or Genghis Khan, they don't want you coming back here, because that means you're going to be a threat to whoever's in charge now. If I take over and I kill you off and you were the most evil person on the planet, I don't want you reincarnating on the planet and coming back and getting me in 20 years. Do you see? If your soul returns and you're just as evil and you can retain some of your power, you're also going to retain some of your knowledge. You're going to know that you hate me. You got to find me and you got to kill me to take me over. And I won't know who you are, because you're going to be in a different body. You could even be born on a different continent. And I won't see you coming. So if I don't let anybody get anywhere near me, but keep everybody below me, that keeps my people, my family in charge. And if I die and I come back and I don't come back as one of those family members, I'm ass out. Well, I don't care. I get mine while I'm here. I don't plan on coming back. I plan on being evil enough to graduate to the next place, so I don't have to worry about this, because I get mine, you get yours. Fuck you. I don't care about you. That's why. But the problem is they got themselves into a position where they're sticking themselves as well. and they're not getting out of here. Okay, let's continue here. Oh, wait, let me rewind it a little bit so you can hear just that part over again. Here we go. All right.
May be precipitated, then we may only offer that information useful to that particular caller. This is the basic difficulty. Entities receive the basic information about the original thought and the means, that is meditation and service to others, whereby this original thought may be obtained. Please note that as Confederation members we are speaking for positively oriented entities. We believe the Orion group has precisely the same difficulty. Once this basic information is received, it is not put into practice in the heart and in the life experience, but instead rattles about within the mind, complex distortions as would a building block which has lost its place and simply rolls from side to side uselessly, yet still the entity calls. Therefore, the same basic information is repeated. Ultimately, the entity decides that it is weary of this repetitive information. However, if an entity puts into practice that which it is given, it will not find repetition except when needed. 60.28 Questioner, thank you. Are the chakras or bodily energy centers related to, or do they operate like the pyramid energy funnel? Ra, I am Ra. No. 60.29 Questioner, was there a purpose for...
That's two snarky Raws in one session. No. I can talk about that. Ra had to ask a question. So let's continue here.
Mummification having to do with anything other than bodily burial? Ra, I am Ra. Much as we would like to speak to you of this distortion of our designs in constructing the pyramid, we can say very little, for the intent was quite mixed and the uses, though many felt them to be positive, were of a non-positive order of generation. We cannot speak upon this subject without infringing upon some basic energy balances between the positive and negative forces upon your planet. It may be said that those offering themselves felt they were offering themselves in service to others. 60.30 Questioner, what civilization was it that helped RA using the pyramid shape while RA was in third density? Ra, I am Ra. Your people have a fondness for the naming. These entities have begun their travel back to the Creator and are no longer experiencing time. 60.31 Questioner.
Now he's referring back to the people in South America that they were working with here. I don't know if he clarifies that or not. I don't remember. Let's continue.
The instrument wished to know, when using the pendulum for discovering energy centers, if the back and forth motion meant anything rather than the circular motion? Ra.
Okay, so he's gone under a different question. So that would be the Incans and the Mayans who just disappeared off the face of the earth, millions and millions of them. That science has said they're just not there. And there is no influx of humans like they spread out. There's no mass graves. And there is no influx in the surrounding areas anywhere where a population grew, meaning people migrated. There is no migratory pattern. There's this whole group of people in South America that just ceased to exist with no bodies. Where did they go? Well, the ancient aliens people were like, well, and spaceships came down here and swooped up about 10 million people from South America and just took them away. They're slaves somewhere now. Right? And so that's everyone goes, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Is there any evidence of that? Do you have any evidence that there was aliens who showed up? Well, they drew about alien spaceships in their caves. So that must have been what happened. Well, those cave drawings are about 5,000 years older than when those people disappeared. Never mind that now. What are you, a skeptic? What is your problem? Shut up over there. Crazy person. Be quiet. It was ancient aliens. It was aliens. That's why everybody jokes about Georgios Tsoukalos when he goes, I didn't quite hear what the question it was that you asked, but it's aliens. That's why everybody jokes about that all the time, because he said his answer to everything was aliens, right? Aliens. And then he says allegedly. He says allegedly a lot too to everything else. Allegedly, when he's trying to prove his point, he's like, well, then they said this allegedly, but it was aliens, right? And so he says allegedly, and then that means wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's aliens. Because everybody's made fun of him for saying aliens to everything. So then he says, started saying allegedly, and then people made fun of that, and now he stopped saying that too. So an entire race of people in South America and Central America just disappeared off the face of the earth. And no one knew they were gone. No one realized they were gone. And then they discovered those places that we now have, Machu Picchu and the like. They rediscovered them, the people. So when we went down there, when the Western world, the modern world, went down there and discovered them and then asked the people, where was this your people? No, that was somebody else who lived here that disappeared. Well, when did they live here? They lived here for thousands of years, and about 5,000, 10,000 years ago, they just disappeared. Well, how do you know that? Well, because we found them about 5,000 years ago, found those places, and dated them back to 10,000 years ago when they disappeared. And we were like, oh, how did you do that? You guys are a bunch of cloth-wearing savages. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because we read it in their literature and in the stuff from the time that we found. Where's all that? Confiscate. So they stopped giving that information over to the white people who were showing up and spending money in their villages because they were taking it all from them. And then they hid it from the world for a long time. And then it started coming out. And people were like, so we've studied all this. And it turns out those people just disappeared because we spent 10 years trying to figure it out, 15 years trying to figure it out. And now they, of course, the ancient aliens people went into, well, they were all here, but they all disappeared because of aliens. There is no empirical evidence of that. That's why when people say there is no empirical evidence that the aliens were here, it's because people in the ancient aliens field say they all disappeared because aliens. It wasn't that. They were actually teaching what we're starting to teach on the world now. This place has an illusion, and that you're supposed to be looking within to look without, and you're supposed to be fixing what's within you and learning your personal ascension and how that coincides with the month of the year and the year of our planet, and how that works on the cycles of our planet, the cycle of the year, your personal cycle, and how that attunes you and illuminates you and makes you smarter and makes you ascend and you gain knowledge in the universe, and that's the secret to what you're supposed to do. And eventually you gain a certain amount of knowledge that you don't have to come back here anymore. And so when you die, you just leave. Only they did it as an entire species, which everybody is claiming in the Hebrew Christian religion, the Western Judeo-Christian religion, as the rapture. Where did they get that idea that an entire group of people could all ascend at the exact same time? Weirdly, there's a group of people in the Americas that did that. Those same people who believe that say, no, they didn't do that. But we're all going to do that. Well, how are you going to do that? And what they describe is exactly what they describe happened to those people. Never mind that. Those were just a bunch of people over there that didn't have any communication with anybody. We came up with this idea because God told us. That's what they said too. They said God told them that. Well, it wasn't our God. It was a different God. And so therefore it's not a real God. Well, weird, because that God who told them told them the same thing that your God told you. And that's weird because that's the same information that's written down by the Vikings that their God told them. And the same information that the Egyptians have that their God told them. And the same one that the Romans, no, those are all different. Those religions are completely different than ours. And when you ask all those people, they're like, yeah, that's the ascension. How come you're not teaching that anymore? They won't let us. That's what's going on. But wait, they claim that they got it from God. Yeah, and God told us that. But see, in the modern Egyptian religion, you find people that change the word God for a specific deity that they want you to see as Apophis or somebody else. And that's the practice that theologians will tell you that every city-state did with all scrolls that they found. That doesn't fit. The story's great, and we agree with that story, but we don't call our God Anu. We call our God Marduk. So we'll erase Anu and put Marduk in there. We'll write the scroll, copy it down, but we'll put our God's name in there, and that's what we'll give to the people. And that's what people have done on this earth. But the story is still the same, but they changed the name. But the story stays the same. All theologians know that. So instead of worrying about which one is the oldest story, how about we look at what are all the stories that are being told that are identical in all of the religions? Nobody's talking about that, oddly. And that's why I wrote this book, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And that's why I'm writing the next book, because that's what that's about. People will either buy it and believe it or they won't, just like any other theologian writing any other book about any other thing that goes on. But it's going to be out there for people to find. because the way to ascension is the way to ascension. Period. Doesn't change. Ra, who is becoming a religion now, okay, that will be a religion, the law of one and the sons of the law of one, they already have groups. That's going to become a religion, and it already has the signs that it's going to become a religion. So people are going to be reading the law of one, and they're going to be studying it as a religion. In 100 years, it's going to be a religion, if it's not already being started up as a religion now. Not that it's wrong, not that they're going to be teaching it wrong. They'll orthodox it, and then they'll turn it into a business, and then it'll get dumbed down just like all other religions. But it'll still at least be teaching in the beginning the same way the Jesus story was taught to the Christians in the beginning. It's not being taught the same way now that it was being taught by Jesus. The law of one will be taught the way I'm teaching it currently right now, and then it's going to get morphed as soon as someone starts a religion out of it. It'll get morphed into an orthodoxy, and then they'll have an organized time when you're supposed to read the books and what you're supposed to read, and when you do that, and somebody will have to organize that, and they'll hire somebody who's linear thinking, and that linear mind will say, on this Sunday we do that, on that Sunday we do this, and on this Sunday we do that, and on that Sunday they do this, and then they'll draw up a curriculum. And then that curriculum will repeat, rinse and repeat, just like all other religions, and it will become an orthodox religion. And then they'll try to convert other people, so they'll start changing their religion to fit the other religious narrative, so that they can say, look, our religion is your religion, and they can recruit people. That's what all religions have done on this earth. And if you study religion long enough, from all the other religions, you find when exactly that happened to all the religions, and who did it, and why they did it, and how they did it, and it's always the same. And then the religion changes, and they all start to become one. The more that happens, the more they're all going to start to become one, and eventually that's what happens, and then people start having all the same knowledge that they gain from all of them, and that's when they start going, but the stories that they're all telling that are the same are this one, and this one, and this one. So maybe all the rest of that's bullshit. Maybe somebody should focus on that, and that's when everybody changes their ideology and starts getting back on point. That's what's happening now on this earth. When you make the earth smaller and all the knowledge is there, and people have all these religions that were spread out into speaking in tongue, and they all had their own ideologies. And now when you take all of them and everybody has access to them all, and you read them all, you start realizing, wait a minute, they're all saying the same thing. That's when you start realizing the truth about spirituality. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it.
I am Ra. This shall have to be the final question, although this entity is still providing us with energy. It is experiencing the distortion towards pain. The rotations having been discussed, we shall simply say that the weak back and forth motion indicates a partial blockage, although not a complete blockage. The strong back and forth motion indicates the reverse of blockage, which is overstimulation of a chakra or energy center, which is occurring in order to attempt to balance some difficulty in body or mind complex activity. This condition is not helpful to the entity as it is unbalanced. Are there any brief queries before we leave this instrument? 60.32 Questioner. Only, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Ra. I am Ra. Be merry, my friends. All is well, and your conscientiousness is to be recommended. We leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Rejoice, then, and go forth in the peace and in the glory of the one infinite Creator. I am Ra. Adonai.
Okay. So your focus determines your reality. If you guys have any questions, ask them now, because I'm going to get off here. Otherwise, we'll pick up a session 61. Let me put that in my phone. Next Friday. I'll discuss this in the chat too. I want to schedule one of those meetings to where you guys can ask questions. So I'll talk about that in the chat too, because some of you aren't in the chat that are here, and some of you around the world may want to tune in to that, to ask me questions about spirituality, not just the law of one. Or you could ask me about the law of one. You could ask me about anything. I am a minister. I am a spiritual guide. I teach spiritual guidance. I teach life coaching, spiritual life coaching, Reiki, but I'm not going to do all that in those sessions. So I want to schedule something for this coming week, And if we want to get Rick involved, I'll check with Rick in the chat and find out. I think his days off are Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday. His Thursday and Friday, which is our Wednesday and Thursday if you're in the United States. And I'll probably do it around the same time. For those of you in the UK, it's a little later for you. But if I want to get Australia involved, it's 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, somewhere around there. And if I want to get Europe involved, it's 8 o'clock at night, or because if I start at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night for you guys. So if I do it earlier, it's too early for the Australians. So if I want to be able to get people in, unless we do it alternating, and I'm not in any position right now because I take care of my mom to alternate too much with that, or to do it for any length of time. So I want to do it this week. So maybe we'll do it Wednesday. That'll be Thursday for Rick. He's not here because he left, but we'll check with him in the chat. And so I'm going to just say tentatively, and then we'll talk about it in the chat off air. Tentatively, we'll do it Wednesday at 3 p.m. West Coast America time. That's GMT -7, 16 hours behind Australia, or at least Melbourne. You guys can figure out where you are in the world. For that timeline, it will not be live on air. All right. I'll put an invite to the studio that I'll put together here for StreamYard, and you guys can come on camera, and we'll sit and talk, and I'll go around the room, and you guys can ask me questions about spirituality or whatever you want to ask me questions about, and I'll answer them, and I won't spend 5 hours talking about every subject. That way we can get every single person involved, and we'll do an hour or two, and I won't have to sit here to do it. I can just sit in my chair over there and mute my microphone when I'm not talking. That way you guys don't hear the television with Mom, and then I'll be right there in the same room, and we can do like an hour or something. If I do it at 3 o'clock, and then I can get Mom in the shower, just prior to, or we could do it earlier. We'll see. Maybe I can do it at 4 o'clock, and then, get Mom in the shower just beforehand. And then that way she has a couple of hours before, and it will be in between meals. Right. So we can figure that out. We'll hammer that out in the chat, and then we'll get some people to come on, and you guys can ask me questions, and I can give you answers that we won't be live on air, so you don't have to worry about other people hearing about what we talk about. Okay. Right. Some of you are like me, are available. Penny said, I'm available just about any time. So, right. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So question, Penny has a question for me right now. Are shadow people... Question, are the shadow people we see other density beings? No. Yes. It's kind of difficult. That's kind of difficult to answer. Let me try and make that as simple as I can. Most of the shadow people that you see are people that are just slightly out of phase with this illusion. So they are, some of them are 3-dimensional beings, and some of them are 4th dimensional beings, but there's many layers to the 3rd dimensional reality that coexist in a different way. Like, for instance, dragons, like, for instance, fairies, like, for instance, gnomes, the little people, there's those people exist, but they're not seen because they have been moved into a sub-realm of the 3rd dimension in this place. Because they're a transition that is closer to 4D than we are currently in this dimension, because of the falling of the human race away from 4D. As we're moving back towards 4D in our ascension, as a whole, we're getting closer to integration with the what we call the we folk, these other entities that are that most people think are fake, that used to be here on this earth, that people still tell stories about. And those of you who are in the UK, specifically in Ireland and Scotland, you know what I'm talking about, because of the fairy mounds and the fairy places there, that these beings still exist and you can still interact with them. So some of us can see them, some of us can talk to them and interact, but there's a group of people that are in the dark realm, to get more specifically, Penny, that scare people. For instance, the gargoyles who you see statues of on the old churches to protect the churches, the gargoyles originally were created to hunt demons during that part of the temporal war. So they still exist, but you just don't see in this reality. And so people put these statues up of them to scare off people, and to show people that they're being protected by gargoyles. The gargoyles' jobs are to do that, and they still exist. When they move through a room, they are perceived as either a whiff of black smoke or shadows. Okay, so not always when you see a shadow people are they evil. Everyone assumes that it's darkness because it's a shadow and it's dark, so therefore it must be evil. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Okay, and I've proved this to people where they were like, "What the hell was that?" Because I work with a couple of different gargoyles that are friends of mine, and I work with them, and you're not like literally. Most people wouldn't be able to see them right now if they stuck their head in the camera and waved at you. Okay, but you guys might see this odd movement of around me, or even a waif of smoke that you're like, what was that? Was that weird? There was a waif of smoke right there. People who have ESP abilities, mediums, they will sometimes see disembodied spirits that move around on camera behind other people, and they'll know whether, usually they know whether that was a good spirit or disembodied or an evil one. They are in the same realm. So demons exist there and gargoyles exist there in the same realm as a disembodied spirit does. That realm is here, but it's out of phase with this one because it's in the energy portion of the realm. The same places where dragons are and where the fairies are and the like, gnomes, they're all in this magical world, what people call the magical world, which is outside of this physical place, because we moved so far and hard into the physical plane, being stuck in this place and then being pulled down by the evil people in this place to pull us further away from the light, that we have created this other physical reality that was deeper entrenched in this matrix. Okay, where originally it was supposed to and did house all of these beings all in the same place. And it'll get back to that, and it's getting back to that now. So where people are, some of you are starting to see these shadow figures and seeing them caught on camera, it's because we're moving into and ascending back to that place where they exist. The problem is that we're all moving into a place where none of us are supposed to be in this reality anymore. So what's happening is they're at the end of that place and there's nowhere for them to go, and we're starting to infringe on them. So they have no alternative besides telling us about themselves again and trying to get us convinced that they exist again, because they're worried that we're shoving them into non-existence, because their realm is becoming smaller as ours is incorporating, and they're afraid that they're going to be snuffed out in some way. So you see that the darkness that's there pushes back against us, and that's what scares people in this realm. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, Penny. So not always when you're seeing shadow figures are they evil. It's just like when you have a ghost in your house, not always are they evil. Not always are they like a poltergeist that's trying to hurt you. Sometimes they're just trying to get your attention. And that's what the people in that realm are trying to do. They're trying to get your attention. Because if the more that you believe in them, the more safe they become, and the integration becomes more natural again, and they'll just blend. And one day we're going to wake up and literally you're going to see a fairy in front of you, and you're going to go, "What the hell? Where did you come from?" They're like, "I've always been here, silly. You just didn't notice me before." But then you're going to go, "But you're floating around in this reality now." But how do you think? Here's the weird part to think about this. How do we know what fairies look like? And why is it that fairies don't look different in all countries? Why is it that they're all little beings with wings on them, on their backs? Why are there little boys and little girls that have wings and they talk and act a certain way? And why is that normal for everyone on the planet? Different cultures with different religions and different beliefs politically and everything else, yet we have the same. We all have dragons. We all have fairies. Why is that they're all the same? Again, that goes back to a story that hasn't changed, even though the stories change in all of these religions and the religions are completely different. Why is it that they all have the same fake, made up, make believe people that existed in the past? Because they exist. Okay. So the shadow, what you're seeing in shadows, you have to start to, when you look at them, you have to learn their smell, their taste. It's in the air. And you'll get whether they're dark or not because of the scent will either be eerie, your gut. If you're paying attention and you'll know, just because you see a shadow or something moves by itself doesn't mean it's an evil person doing it. Okay? Because think about what if you were if you were right now in a room and there were 10 people in the room that couldn't see you, what would you be doing to get their attention? You'd be doing shit to try and get their attention. Why aren't you listening? Hello? And you're going to poke them. You're going to prod them. You're going to try and walk through them. You're going to try and move shit around. You're going to try and do what you can to get their attention. Right? Unless you just don't care about that they can or can't see you, and then you're going to go about your life. But if you're trying to get their attention, you're going to do things. So most people don't realize that most of the ghosts are just trying to get your attention. They either know that you can see them and they sense it, and they don't know why they don't understand that they're dead, or they're a fairy kin and they are living in a realm that we're starting to move into, and they're trying to see if we can see them and hear them because they know we're getting close. And so they're like, how close are they to actually knowing we're here? Because then they have to worry about us going and trying to kill them. Do you see? And they have to make sure that when that happens, and that we are in the same realm again, we're not going to just start trying to exterminate them. Because if we saw dragons right now, we'd start trying to kill the dragons for fear that the dragons would be evil. Why? Because everybody shows that the dragons get mad and that there's some of them are evil and they try to kill off all humans. So therefore, we're going to have to kill them all off. If dragons all appeared right now, we wouldn't be trying to say some of them are not evil. Except everybody that grew up watching the cartoons, How to Train Your Dragon, and everybody that's playing, say, World of Warcraft, where they have dragons, in any other video game and cartoon about dragons and gargoyles, where you're being educated that they're people too, and some of them are evil and some of them are not. And you're going to find that out with everybody in 3D, that is the scenario. So once we as humans realize that scenario, then we will change and not treat them all as if they're all evil. So you have to realize that. You have to decide when you see the shadow people. So they are 3D, but they're out of phase with us, and we're starting to see them now more and more. If you go back in time to 40 years ago to Sylvia Brown, the psychic, she believed, she's dead now, but she was on one of the TV shows, Montel Williams. She used to go on Montel Williams' show all the time. If you're old enough to remember her, you know what I'm talking about. If not, she was a very famous psychic who predicted COVID and said it was going to return in 2030, by the way, and then go away again. And right when everybody forgets about COVID, then it's going to rear its ugly head being called something different. And it's going to be COVID. And because we're going to be going into 2032, which is going to be the demise of this way of life. And they know that evil people are going to try and one last ditch effort of taking total world control, 2032. And so you'll see that. And so when it's in her book, and when people published that book, it got deleted. I published a copy of her book that showed where she talked about it, and they said that it was misinformation, that I was making that up. I'm like, that's a picture from a book that a woman wrote 40 years ago. That's in there. And I got deleted from Facebook and all around the internet. And I wasn't the only one. I don't own the book, or I'd publish it again. But the picture's out there. I may try to find it and publish it again and see if they delete me now. But it got deleted when people were publishing it during COVID because they were deleting anything that talked about COVID in a negative light. She said on one of her shows where she was on with Montel Williams talking about dragons that in the future, in 20 or 30 years, which it's been 40 and it hasn't happened, but she believed that in the future, it's going to be just as commonplace to see a 747 flying in the air as it is going to be to see a dragon flying in the air. Because our realms are merging. I've known this my entire life. Okay. And a buddy of mine who woke up one day and could hear fairies and see them, thought he was going crazy. And he wrote a book that you can still buy. I'm pretty sure it's still in print, called A Fairy Tale. And he had a shop over in Benicia, California, down in the San Francisco Bay Area, called the same thing. I don't know if the shop is still there. I don't even know if he's still alive. His name was, I can't remember his name now. Ron. I don't remember his last name. His first name is Ron. Anyway, they told him exactly what I just told you 45 years ago or 40 years ago, whenever it was that he wrote his book. Okay. And he and I were friends, and I used to go into a shop when I was engaged to Virginia, who was my first wife, Virginia Risden, who's around still on Facebook. She's on. She is one of the creator and owner of Candle Book and Broom, the group, which you should go check out. She has a lot of good stuff that she posts there. Who is also a medium, a very powerful medium, and a Reiki master teacher like myself, who doesn't do it as much anymore. She took a break from all of this craziness that I'm doing, and she's just now starting to get back into that. And so she's on here all the time, posting stuff again. So if you were following her before, I think Penny, you're following her. If you were following her before she's back, you should go and follow her again. Candle Book of Broom is republished, and she's posting stuff there every day. So she said that these realms are merging, and so did the fairies. When Ron never saw that show from Sylvia Brown, and the fairies told him the exact same story that I just told you, that she just said, that in the future, if we don't get stifled into not ascending, we're going to go to this place where they're going to be integrated with our realm again. So I hopefully that helped. I don't know if anybody has another question, but I'm going to have to get off here pretty soon. Dragons, unicorns, yeah. And why is it the unicorns look identical in every country? Have the one single horn and a white fleece. Why is that's what everybody has been drawing? Oh, it's just because they've all because why people who draw a horse the way they look in their country. People who draw a camel the way they look in their country. People who so it's only the animals that exist the same all around the world. Do they all get depicted the same all the way around the world? So when you look at dragons, let's take dragons, for instance, there are more than one species of dragon. That's why you have the European dragon, but the face is the same. But some of them have a skinny snake-like body with little wings, and they fly in the air like this. And then you have the European dragon, which has a bigger body and has to have these bigger wings to fly around. Okay. All across Europe, they had that same. That's why it's called a European dragon. Then when you go to the east, the Chinese and the Japanese have the same dragon face, but the body is different. In South America, you had the same dragon as you did over in the Orient, in the East. So the Europeans are the only group of people that had a different dragon species than the rest of the world. Why? You'd have to ask the dragons. Okay. So, but why is it that they all have the same face? The face is identical. One has bigger whiskers than the other one, but they're all the same. And they're all talked about all around the world. Oh, it's just because it was just a UFO. It was the Anunnaki. No. Okay. So if something is the same worldwide and you can't trace it to one event that went global, and you realize that they're identical and that they've stayed that way for thousands of years, in the modern day, if fairies were invented in 1872, I could see that they would all be drawn the same around the world, because that expanded out to the rest of the world, like certain sayings, like hella. Dude, you hella scared me. That was hella bad. That was hella cool. that originated here in the state of California. It's going around the world now, but we've been saying it in this state since I was a little boy, and I don't know when it started, so it may have been before that. Okay. And it's very synonymous with San Francisco Bay Area. So much so that when the Golden State Warriors won their first championship in this era in the 2000s, they literally were on there in Oakland, because at the time they played in Oakland, and they were talking to the world and had a party and had the parade and all of that. And somebody actually used that vernacular and said, I want to use the word that you guys use out here that's super popular. That was a hell of a run. That was a hella cool thing. Because all of us in California and people that are from here, we've been saying that I'm 57. As far as I know, it's been being said here in this state my entire life. Some of you out there in the rest of the world are just starting to catch on to that. Every now and then I see it on a television show and I go, yes, they put hella in there. And then people go, oh, no, that started in New York. No, it didn't. No, it did not. Did not start in New York. Show me in history in New York. I can show you in history out here in the state of California that it came from the state of California and specifically the Bay Area. And when it started, you can trace it back. And linguists will tell you that it doesn't trace back to New York. It doesn't trace back to any other state. It was people who moved from here that went there that got people saying it there. And there's a definitive time of when that was starting to say. And if you trace it back, you'll find so-and-so moved from California and brought that word here. Truth is, that's going to be a word it's catching on, and it's going to go around the whole world. It's not a slang word. That's why it's not dying out like other slang words die out. And each generation comes up with their whole new things that they say, right? I'm the way I spoke when I was a teenager, nobody understands now, but except for people my age. And the way people speak who are teenagers now is as foreign to me as a different language that I have to learn, because I'm not on the streets, and so I don't hear that. So once it hits television, anybody who knows that if it makes it to a television show, it's already not being said by the people who they copied to put on the television show. Okay. It's already been gone for a year or two, and they got a whole new language that comes up. And that's just the way that things work. But there's certain things that stay, and this is my point. So if things stay and they are told the same way, no matter what culture or country, that's a message you should pay attention to, because it seems to be something that transcends time, culture, and language. Those are things that you need to pay a little bit more attention to. So when you read all these different languages, these religions in different languages, and you start finding that they're saying the same thing, pay attention to that thing that they're saying, not the religion that's saying it, not the doctrine that's saying it so much. But you can keep that in mind. But everybody goes, well, it must have came from ours. They must have borrowed it. Every religion tells you they're the ones who created every religion, even though like Christianity is only 2,000 years old, less than that actually, right? So then obviously they borrowed the Jesus story from the Hebrews because it was based on all of their stuff. Well, then people will tell you that the Hebrew religion was based on Sanskrit, which was borrowed from the Mesopotamians. Yet the Mesopotamian religion only goes back to about 8,000 years or 6,000 years ago. The Viking religion goes further back than that. But it wasn't written down until the 1200s, till the 1100s. So officially, if you go by the Egyptian way of it has to be written, so let it be written, so let it be done, that if it's not written down, then it doesn't exist, then only people who had to write in language have the oldest language. And that's what they do with religion. Well, that scroll that's based on is 5,000 years old. So it's the oldest scroll that we found. So therefore, it must be the origin. It's just the one that exists. That doesn't mean it's the original one. When they wrote that, does it say the person say, I'm inventing this? No. When you look into that, they say, no, this was from a different story that was older, but we changed the God name. Theologians know that, and they look into that. It all dates back to a society that no longer exists, that died out on this earth 77,000 years ago. So we have no idea. And guess what? When we found over in Turkey, the site over in Turkey, they found scrolls or written word on stone, on clay tablets, that is not attributed to that society that lived there. That society found it from a society that existed prior to theirs, and that they actually didn't know what it said. They hadn't deciphered the language yet. So there is scrolls that we have on this earth that are older than 77,000 years ago, so old that the people who lived and died at 77,000 years ago, we don't know how long they lived for, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. They have a scroll that we now have that came from a society before theirs. So we might be talking about 125,000-year-old writing that they couldn't interpret and that we haven't been able to interpret yet. So is that going to be the Bible? Is that going to be the exact same stories that we now have, that eventually we're going to say people 77,000 years ago, when they died 77,000 years ago, we have now found it in their archives and they didn't know what it said. So if we translate it to now, is that going to tell us that it was another civilization that died out 125,000 years ago? And then are we going to start finding their stuff someplace deeper? And when we do, are we going to find what? I'll bet you we find the same ascension and the same knowledge, because that's what we've been finding. No matter how far back we go, we find the same information published by people older and older and older and older and older and older throughout history. No matter how, every single time we discover somebody brand new, once we translate their words, we find it's the same message from before. And then everybody goes, well, we got to keep looking for the origin of that. So eventually, do you think it's going to go, ha, 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 here I am creating this for the very first time out of thin air as a story that I've made up completely to fool people and made a religion out of it? Is that what we're waiting for? That's like waiting to find the sign at the end of the internet that says you have now reached the end of the internet. There's nothing left for you to find. It's never going to happen. But the one thing that is happening is the same ascension is being told by every race, every religion, throughout time, no matter how far back we go, when we find and discover new cultures and then translate their actual words, we find that they're the same. So we should stop focusing on we have to keep looking for older and dig deeper, because we're not finding anything new. What we're finding is the same old story that we're still ignoring today. We need to stop doing that. Stephanie, you were talking in German. Yep, sure, that's hilarious. You were learning German, and then you started speaking in German and type, and then realized that you were talking in German. Right? Yeah, right. She just says that. Sorry, speaking English now. I was making Leonard practice German. Oh, that's what you were doing that for. You were wanting me to read your German. That's funny. I didn't have my glasses on, so I didn't even see what you were saying. Anyway, so that's hilarious. Okay. So you have to realize that that's a good example, though. The language barrier is, you should have differences. If everybody's speaking a completely different language, why is it that in that language that they're speaking that's completely foreign, like if you look at German there on your screen, it's completely foreign to English today. It's not really truly when you learn the words, right? Right? You're talking about Stargate, right? You see the word and you have to put that word in English because there is no German word. There is actually a German word for Stargate. If translate the German star and gate, you'll find that there is words that are not Stargate. But my point is that they shouldn't be talking about the same ascension unless they're just translating the same book. And that's what everyone bases the fact that, well, they all must be just translating the same book because they're telling the same story. So therefore, we have to look linearly for this physical story. That's somebody who's looking in the flesh for something that's not there. You're going to keep seeking it and you're never going to find it. Why? Because you're chopping down the trees of the forest looking for the forest. Right? I'd be able to find the forest if these damn trees were just in the way. Chop down some of these trees so we can see the forest. Nope, I still don't see the forest because these other trees are in the way. Chop those trees down. And eventually you're going to chop all the trees down. Then you're going to go, well, there's the forest way over there. That's why we couldn't see them. All those trees were in our way. And now we have to go across this 5 miles of a plain to the other side where the forest is. And then when you get there, you go, I can't see it. Chop down that first row and you're never going to see the forest because the trees are in the way. You're not looking. You're looking for the origin of the forest instead of the forest. So instead of looking for the message, everybody's looking for the messenger, and they're going, where did that come from? All of the messages tell you it came from God. Why is that so hard to believe? All of them tell you that the ascension is the ascension and knowledge is knowledge, and you can only gain it by being in service to others. Oh, wait. So if I'm in service to self and I'm trying to make money off of this, I have to keep it in control of me. So I have to keep control of the narrative. Therefore, I have to stop people from looking at the forest and put them all to work chopping the forest down. And that way we can also have them cut up everything into wooden planks and build a city over here. And then I can charge them rent to live in the city over here so that I get all my money back that I'm paying them to chop down the trees. And I can sell the wood to these other people to build the carpenters to build that stuff and then charge money for the carpenters to live in that and then charge money to sell them the wood to build the houses that I own, that I buy from them and then charge everybody else. And that's what they're doing here. They're employing you to go out and chop down the trees. They own the trees now, and then they're employing you to make planks out of them, which they own, and then they're selling them to people to build houses who have to hire carpenters and pay them money, and then they have the houses which they're buying, and then they're selling the houses to everybody else, but they own it, and you have to get a loan, which they own the bank to, that gives you the loan to live there, and they're the ones chopping down the tree, and they're keeping you looking for the forest by chopping down the trees, and then we have to build another house closer to the other forest over there so people don't have to travel as far to get over there to chop down those trees and build some more houses in between so people can live there and get there faster without having to worry about things, and they can do it, and then you just keep moving them around the planet all the time. Oh, and now we don't have any trees, so now let's go out and plant trees over in these areas so that we can have trees to cut down in 100 years when they get big enough. And so we'll get people on the idea that they need to go out and plant the trees, and we'll pay them money to go and plant the trees, which is the saplings that we're growing from the trees we're having them cut down over here to make the wood planks to make the houses that they're living in. Do you see that? That's what they're doing. And the whole time you're running around, chasing around nothing. And they're getting rich the entire time. And you're not looking at the message. You're not learning what you're supposed to learn because you're too busy running from here to 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 here, going in a circle here, going in a circle, going in a circle, going in a circle. Or you're one of those people. You're not moving, but I'm building houses. I'm not moving, but I'm chopping down trees. I'm not moving, but I'm milling the wood into planks for them to build the houses. And you're not doing anything. And that's exactly what they want you to do. All right, guys. I love you guys. I got to go. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll talk in the chat later after dinner because I got to get dinner going now because it's almost dinner time. Get my mother in the shower and get dinner. And then afterwards, we'll talk in the chat between now and Wednesday. But I'm going to be on Wednesday for anybody who wants to come in. But you got to be in the Law of One chat on Messenger to get the link, or talk to me personally on Messenger, and then I can send you the link, and we'll get 10 or 12 people in, whoever wants to come in. If you guys want to ask me questions about spirituality or whatever, I can work with you guys individually. And then if you guys want to work one-on-one, we can work something out to where we can talk. Most of you guys I'm already doing that with anyways. Whenever you ask me questions, I'm trying to work with you. But this way you guys can ask questions there. Yeah, I'll read his name, right? And that's funny that they put that in that movie, Django Rising, in there where he said, because he translated it, because people think it means goodbye. And he said, I won't say an Auf Wiedersehen to you, because Auf Wiedersehen actually means until we meet again. So I will just say goodbye. Of course, then Leonardo DiCaprio pulled the gun out and shot him to death, shot him through the heart, killed him. But that was a good line because people just think that Auf Wiedersehen means goodbye. And it actually means, the direct translation into English means until we meet again, right? But Auf Wiedersehen, Stephanie. I'll talk to you guys later. All right. So, but thank you for making me do the read. I'm reading what you were saying in German now. To actually, I was actually just doing German last night. I'll probably be doing it again today, because you've inspired me to get back onto German because you are exclusively doing German. But then somebody says something to me in another language, like Cassie will, or my sister, because they're both learning Spanish primarily. So then I end up going back and doing Spanish because they get me back on that track. But I was doing Dutch and Danish in the last 3 days, and then last Sunday I was doing Latin. I'm trying to keep them all up. I was doing Irish on Saturday. I try to bebop around to get. I'm trying to drive all the languages up to where I know everything. So yeah, all right, guys. I love you guys. Have a great night. We'll talk more in the chat between today, tomorrow, but Wednesday. I'm going to do that. I'll just let everybody know that in the chat, and so that way anybody that wants to show up 3 p.m. on Wednesday, I'll be doing that, and I'll tell Cassie so she doesn't schedule her thing on Wednesday for 3 p.m. as well. And that way she can do, because she also wants to do that as well and get together so you guys can ask her questions and you guys can talk about things as well off camera. She'll be doing it on Zoom. I'll be doing it in here in the chat, but we won't be going live and I won't be recording it, just so you know, and she won't be either until we do something to where we're doing that publicly. And then I'll go live to be letting people ask questions publicly. But in the beginning, we're going to do it off camera first. And then eventually I'll be doing it live on air. And we'll be doing that, speaking in front of people in crowds as well, where we'll be taking questions and stuff. We'll be doing that going forward around the world. You'll see a lot more of us starting to do that. People have already been doing it, but you're going to be seeing a lot more people starting to do that around the world, because you guys need to know some answers to some questions. And even though the people who've been doing it for 20 or 30 years already, those crowds have been small because the people weren't ready for it. And now it's going to start getting bigger because more and more people are asking these questions and need answers. So we're moving into that phase of that reality. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys either later in the chat or on Wednesday or both. For those of you who only are tuning in to listen to the Law of One, that this will be back live again next Friday at 3 p.m. West Coast America time. Then the MP3 broadcast will go live after that. For those of you who listen to me around the world on the MP3 broadcast on your podcast, wherever you get your podcast. All right, guys, have a great night. I love you guys.